Chapter 518. Xia Jingyu's lips parted, but her throat seemed to be blocked by something, unable to open her mouth. She knew that it was the longing that had been suppressed in her heart for too long, the anticipation that had settled for too long, the surprise that had been brewing for too long. She was in such a sudden happiness that she had lost the ability to speak. Suyu, goodbye Suyu. Ever since she had found out that Enyu was Suyu, ever since Enyu's whereabouts had been unknown, she had been filled with anxiety and anticipation. She was worried and indecisive for Suyu's unknown fate, like duckweed drifting in a river, unable to find peace. Now, she had finally seen the face that she had not seen for so long. At this moment, Xia Jingyu felt as if she had once again found the peace that she had felt when she was by Suyu's side. Bai Luo and the rest had just escaped death's door, still in a state of shock. Looking at the mysterious silver-haired silhouette, their pupils dilated. That silver-haired, dark-robed silhouette had killed 9 purple bees in an instant. What kind of terrifying ability was that? A huge pressure, like the roar of a mountain or the roar of a tsunami, assaulted them. Even though the silver-haired silhouette had his back to them, he gave them a suffocating pressure. With such battle abilities, he might not lose out to the genius of Jiuzhou. The silver-haired youth in front of them had an unfamiliar face. He was undoubtedly a genius of Jiuzhou. Bai Luo gasped. How many terrifying geniuses were there in Jiuzhou? The youth in front of them looked like he was only 17 years old. Thank you, brother, for saving our lives. Bai Luo cupped his fists and bowed, his tone filled with respect. The rest of the lords also bowed respectfully. Since this genius of Jiuzhou had helped them in their moment of crisis, it was obvious that he was a benevolent person and did not have any enmity towards them. But what they did not expect was that the silver-haired, dark-robed youth turned a deaf ear to them. He casually sized up the crystal bee, muttering, "A half-fairy ferocious beast with one vital energy crystal? The difficulty of a legacy here is much lower than I had imagined. The other legacies had fairy realm killers, but this place only had half-fairies." To Suyu, it was not difficult to get rid of it. The crystal bee stared at Suyu for a moment, then let out a soft hiss. It spread its wings and flew into the sky, bringing the black bees that were guarding the forest with it as it escaped. Being extremely intelligent, it could sense that Suyu's body was emitting an unusually dangerous aura. Has he left? Fine, it will save me some time. After Suyu mulled it over for a moment, he gave up on chasing him and started walking toward the dense forest. Brother, these purple wasps are your spoils of war. Greed flashed past Bai Luo's eyes. He was pondering whether he could negotiate with him and get a share of the materials. However, it was as if Suyu had not heard him. He continued to walk into the dense black forest and turned a deaf ear to Bai Luo's words. The great Lord of Darkness, including Bai Luo, was secretly shocked. What a cruel genius from Jiuzhou. Bai Luo's eyes glowed brilliantly, and he kept the corpses of the 9 purple bees like a bolt of lightning. He then gave the rest of the lords a look, and they chased after Suyu together, heading into the dense forest. Suyu, who was walking in front of them, suddenly stopped in his tracks. With his back facing them, he said indifferently, "Stop." Bai Luo and the others felt as if they had been electrocuted. They immediately stood still, their hearts thumping. "Who allowed you to follow me?" Suyu slowly turned around, revealing a handsome face that had never appeared in the Jinlong continent before. His face was like a celestial being from a painting. His proud and independent aura was a huge blow to the great lords of darkness. What a handsome young man! He is like a celestial being. Such elegance is something that the geniuses of the Jinlong continent cannot hope to achieve. One of the great lords of darkness could not help but exclaim in admiration. Although the rest of the people did not nod, they silently agreed with this statement. There was no one in the Jinlong continent who could compare to him. The elegance of the geniuses of Jiuzhou had shocked them deeply. Coupled with his shocking abilities, they were even more impressed. Bai Luo was filled with respect, cupping his fists and apologizing. "Brother, please do not blame us. We will leave now." Suyu calmly swept his gaze past them. And, seeing that we are all from the Jinlong continent, I will save you this once. Do not push your luck." Everyone nodded their heads, but their faces suddenly stiffened. Then, shock appeared on their faces. "What? Brother? Brother, you are also from the Jinlong continent?" Bai Luo was shocked. Back at the mysterious heavenly stage, there were only a few geniuses of the Jinlong continent, and he knew all of them. When had such a terrifying existence appeared? Suyu then realized that they had misunderstood him as a genius of Jiuzhou. After all, his true appearance had never been revealed on the Jinlong continent. Haha, you have forgotten me so quickly? A year ago, we were still officials of the same empire. Suyu let out a faint smile. Being officials of the same empire was naturally the Empire of Darkness. But his words caused them to be even more shocked, and their hearts were filled with astonishment. Bai Luo's pupils shrank, and he cried out involuntarily, "You are from the Empire of Darkness. You came from the Empire of Darkness. Impossible. I am the leader of the 7 Lords of Darkness. May I ask for brother's name?" Countless figures flashed past Bai Luo's mind, but none of them matched the young man in front of him. Such a terrifying genius must be one of the most respected 7 Lords of Darkness in the Empire of Darkness. Could he be the previous 7 Lords of Darkness? But if that was the case, his age was already over 30 years old, and his age did not match. "My name? Ha! Hee. Have you forgotten me so quickly, Bai Luo? North Continent's Sub-Palace's former 10th Deputy Palace Master, Yin. If I remember correctly, I am still wanted by you. North Continent's Sub-Palace's 10th Deputy Palace Master, Yin. 10th Deputy Palace Master, Yin. They were at a loss for a moment. It was obvious that they had forgotten about the lad who was sheltered under Ling Xiaoyin's wings. After all, Suyu was too weak back then, and only had the right to look up to the 7 Lords of Darkness. Why would they remember such a small fry? After muttering for a while, they finally remembered. "Yin, it's you." Bai Luo took a deep breath, his heart rumbling like thunder. He could not believe what he was seeing. The Yin that he had started to forget, the Yin that had disappeared without a trace, was actually alive and standing in front of him in an unfathomable manner. The shock brought about by the huge disparity was as intense as the Milky Way falling from the 9 heavens. He had even forgotten about the hatred between him and Yin, and that he was in danger. "Looks like you have remembered," Suyu calmly said. The 7 Lords of Darkness were deeply shocked, feeling as if they were dreaming. In their eyes, this genius of Jiuzhou, who had a terrifying aptitude, was actually a person from the Jinlong continent, a handsome young man with a domineering demeanor. Furthermore, he was once their subordinate. He was a normal genius who could not compare to them. At that moment, everyone had mixed feelings. Chapter 519. In an instant, Suyu's gaze landed on Bai Luo, his gaze turning cold. "Originally, I had planned to personally execute you in front of Palace Master Ling after I had healed him. But since you have recognized me, there is no need to wait any longer." Words filled with killing intent suddenly burst out. Bai Luo woke up from his shock, his expression turning pale. He then realized that he and Yin had an irreconcilable feud. That day, when Yin had escaped from the Empire of Darkness, he had sworn a vow filled with hatred. It still rang in his ears. In the past, he had treated it as a joke, never taking it seriously. But today, the vow to kill a level 1 martial artist reverberated in his heart like a thunderbolt. At this moment, his heart was filled with fear, finally feeling remorseful. It was as if he had touched someone he should not have touched. Whoosh! The silver-haired, dark-robed figure attacked like lightning. Bai Luo was shocked. The 9 vortexes combined into one, forming a giant vortex that blocked in front of him, absorbing the energy of the attack. Suyu's figure flickered, appearing abruptly. His palm glowed with a red light. A red dagger, giving off a bloody aura, drew a bright red afterimage in the air. With a dull thud, the vortex that Bai Luo was so proud of only lasted for a moment before it shattered on the spot. The red afterimage passed through Bai Luo's chest without any resistance. With a pathetic shriek, Bai Luo's chest was sliced open, a 5-foot-long wound. It was so deep that his bones could be seen. The crowd was shocked. A casual attack had shattered Bai Luo's innate space. How frightening was that? A high-grade divine artifact. I see. Bai Luo stared at the high-grade divine artifact in Su Yu's hands, his eyes filled with anger. He finally understood why Su Yu was so powerful, able to kill so many purple bees so easily. He actually controlled such a frightening divine artifact. High-grade divine artifacts were extremely rare in the Jinlong continent. Once one controlled them, their abilities would increase by another level. It was nothing. Su Yu shook the dagger that was stained with Bai Luo's blood, calmly saying, "It is enough to kill you." But Bai Luo let out a cold laugh. "Humph, this divine artifact belongs to me." Bai Luo opened his mouth and spat out a grayish-white pearl. The pearl contained a powerful space energy. "Return." Bai Luo gave a low grunt. At once, Bai Luo's blood on the blood-red dagger in Su Yu's hand released space energy abruptly and enveloped the dagger. Then the grayish-white bead flashed, and the dagger was teleported into the bead. "Your treasure will be the price for making me bleed." Bai Luo laughed maniacally, his face filled with murderous intent. "Now that you don't have a high-grade divine weapon, let's see how you are going to be so arrogant in front of me." As he spoke, his figure flashed, and he charged towards Su Yu furiously. He said ferociously, "I will kill you first, then I will kill that old thing, Ling Xiaotian. I will send both of you on your way." Su Yu's eyes were filled with a cold light, and his murderous intent became even more intense. Bai Luo must die. As for the blood-colored dagger, Bai Luo did not know that it was the lowest-level treasure in Su Yu's possession. If he took this dagger, he would die even faster. However, right at this moment, 3 figures suddenly flew over. It was Senior Zhang and the other 2 who had just left. They were shocked to realize that the crystal bees and black bees guarding the legacy had left. Hence, they came over to investigate and saw the scene of Su Yu and Bai Luo fighting. When the 3 of them flew over, the junior on the right looked at them coldly. "What happened here? Why did the crystal bees leave? Speak." Senior Zhang and the other junior landed and surveyed the surroundings. They creased their brows and observed the surroundings, trying to find the reason why the black bees had left. As for Su Yu and the rest, they were completely ignored. The sudden appearance of the 3 people caused Bai Luo and the rest to be shocked. They had returned. The true geniuses of Jiuzhou. Bai Luo's figure stopped abruptly, his heart beating violently. He stood at his original position, not daring to move. "I asked you a question. Are you mute?" The junior's expression turned cold as he scolded. Suddenly, his gaze swept past the grayish-white pearl in Bai Luo's palm. When he looked at it, he saw that there was a dagger inside. It had been a casual glance, but upon closer inspection, his pupils dilated, his face filled with shock. Rub, rub, rub. He subconsciously retreated 7 to 8 steps, his face contorted due to fear. He looked as if he had lost his soul. "Junior Wu, what happened to you?" The junior on the left could not help but ask in astonishment. The disciple called Junior Wu had a terrified expression, his finger trembling as he pointed at the grayish-white pearl in Bai Luo's hand. "It's that person's bloodthirsty dagger." At that moment, Senior Zhang also creased his brows and looked over, scolding softly. "Making a fuss over nothing. Where is your propriety?" However, when he saw the dagger and the bead, his dignified face gradually stiffened. Shreds of fear and dread gradually appeared in his eyes, his face turning unnaturally pale. "Bloodthirsty dagger. It can't be wrong. I can't be wrong." Senior Brother Zhang sucked in a breath of cold air. How could his dagger be here? Senior Zhang's gaze fell upon Bai Luo, his gaze becoming more courteous. "May I ask, what is your relationship with the owner of the dagger?" Bai Luo froze. The other party's courteous greeting had caught him off guard. He glanced at Su Yu and said apprehensively, "We could be considered brothers. What advice do you have for me?" He and Su Yu were both disciples nurtured by the Empire of Darkness, so they could be considered brothers. Hearing this, Senior Zhang's eyelids twitched a few times. Even the expressions of the 2 fierce-looking juniors beside him eased up. "So you are his brothers," said Zhang Yu. "I am Zhang Yu from the Giant Mark faction. May I ask for your name?" Zhang Yu was unusually courteous. Bai Luo was a little overwhelmed by the favor, but he did not dare be negligent. I am Bai Luo, and these are my juniors. So it's Brother Bai. No wonder your demeanor is so extraordinary. Your junior brother and junior sister are also incomparably capable. Even without relying on that senior brother of yours, they're still able to temper themselves here. This truly puts me to shame, Zhang Yu said with a smile. Chou Ziming's name was well known in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands, and he was extremely ferocious. Now that he was in the mysterious heavenly palace, he was a terrifying existence that no one could defeat. With Chou Ziming's ruthlessness, if he were to find out that his juniors had been bullied by them, their fates would be terrible. Bai Luo laughed. He suddenly felt a pain in his chest, but his mind relaxed. The pain assaulted him. Zhang Yu's expression changed. Brother Bai, what happened? Bai Luo let out a bitter laugh. I was careless and was injured by this thief. Zhang Yu rolled his eyes, looking at Su Yu coldly, his eyes filled with killing intent. Humph! You dare touch him. It would have been fine if I had not seen him. Since I have, I can only seek justice for his senior. At that moment, a majestic vital energy surged out of his body. He was a half-fairy with a vital energy crystal. Chapter 520. It was obvious that Zhang Yu had mistaken Bai Luo and the rest as Chou Ziming's juniors, disciples of the soul-seizing palace. He had been so polite, even willing to stand up for them, also that he could leave a good impression and not offend them. Zhang Yu froze, his eyes turning. He immediately understood the meaning behind Su Yu's words. In fact, he had his suspicions as well. These people did not look like disciples of the demon faction. From their clothing, they looked more like wandering cultivators. But he would rather believe it than not believe it. He did not want to offend a demon, like Chou Ziming unknowingly. Lad, what are you talking about? I did not understand. Zhang Yu grunted, taking a step forward, the killing intent on his face undiminished. Seeing this, Su Yu let out a cold laugh. You were just pretending not to understand. He took this sword from my hands. As for the senior relationship he spoke of, it was naturally between him and me. It has nothing to do with Chou Ziming. These words caused the two juniors to reveal expressions of understanding. No wonder these people were unfamiliar. They were wandering cultivators who had entered the mysterious heavenly stage, just like them. They did not look like disciples of the soul-seizing palace. Hearing Su Yu's words, they finally understood. Zhang Yu was relieved, but his eyes were filled with shock as he asked, "The bloodthirsty dagger is yours? Where did you get it?" A look of confusion appeared in Zhang Yu's eyes. The youth in front of them had average abilities, only at the level of a human king. It was hard to believe that he could steal the bloodthirsty dagger from Chou Ziming. Could something have happened to Chou Ziming, and this lad had taken advantage of it? Of course I got it from Chou Ziming, Su Yu said calmly. The two juniors scolded. Do you want to die? Answer my questions truthfully. They could not believe that a human king could obtain the bloodthirsty dagger from a half-fairy. As for Zhang Yu, he gestured for them to quiet down, his eyes glowing. Does that mean something has happened to Chou Ziming? Su Yu casually nodded. Yes, he is dead. What? Even Zhang Yu was dumbfounded. That fiendish Chou Ziming was actually dead. Who had such nature-defying abilities to kill him in the mysterious, heavenly divine pavilion? Could he have encountered a monster from the mysterious heavenly palace at the level of the fairy realm? The three of them were shocked for a long time. At the same time, they heaved a long sigh of relief. Their doubts were also solved. The bloodthirsty dagger, which never left Chou Ziming's side, was now in the hands of a group of wandering cultivators. This silver-haired young man had probably taken advantage of the situation to obtain Chou Ziming's treasure. A hint of surprise appeared in their eyes at the same time. If that was the case, the possibility of this lad obtaining Chou Ziming's storage device was extremely high. Chou Ziming had killed countless people and was cruel by nature. The treasures that he had seized were many times more than the others. How rich must his net worth be? You little thieves, you actually dared to covet senior brother Chou Ziming's belongings. Hand it over obediently, and I will return it to the soul seizing palace. If not humph, humph. Zhang Yu revealed his ferocious look. The two senior brothers stood on the left and right, surrounding the group of people. The expressions of the 7 Lords of Darkness changed drastically. The situation had taken a sudden turn for the worse. These people wanted to kill them as well. It was one thing for the two fighters who were no weaker than Long Wuxin, but Zhang Yu was unfathomable. He could easily kill all of them alone. A thick sense of despair reverberated in their hearts. How could they not know that even if Inu handed over the items, they would most likely not escape death? After all, Cho Ziming's treasures had fallen into their hands. Zhang Yu did not dare let anyone leak the news. Belongings? There is indeed one more. If you want it, come and take it. Su Yu's expression did not change. He was very calm. Zhang Yu's gaze turned cold. You are still putting on an act in front of me, trying to scheme? You are asking for death. In his eyes, Su Yu, who was at the level of human king, had average battle abilities. He could easily destroy Su Yu. He was merely pretending to be calm, to scare them. He gave his two junior brothers a look. The two of them surrounded Su Yu from the left and right, while Zhang Yu moved from the middle, coldly surrounding Su Yu. Bai Luo's eyes glowed. He took the opportunity to retreat, preparing to escape. Capture him. Zhang Yu grunted. The three of them sealed off Su Yu's escape route, pouncing forward. Creak! But at this moment, a golden light flashed behind Su Yu's back. 3 identical golden swords appeared. The bodies of the swords were simple and ordinary. However, the aura it emitted was enough to make one's heart palpitate with fear and astonishment. Semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts? 3 semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts? The two junior brothers lost their voices in shock, unable to believe the scene in front of them. Semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts were items that only fairy realm fighters could possess. Zhang Yu's brows twitched violently, a sense of impending doom looming over him. His expression changed as he scolded. Leave quickly. There is something wrong with this lad. Whoosh, whoosh. But before the two junior brothers could react, a golden light flashed on their necks. Their heads fell to the ground, their faces still filled with shock. Even in death, they had not realized that they were already dead. He had killed 2 top-notch half-gods in the blink of an eye. Zhang Yu gasped, his soul leaving his body. Without thinking, he turned into a blur, fleeing for his life. But he had only taken 2 steps when a golden light flashed near his neck. A golden ripple appeared, and a small golden sword flew out, circling around his neck. It was a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact with a space element. Zhang Yu was extremely terrified, screaming, "Spare me!" But the small golden sword sliced around his neck, sending it flying mercilessly. As it fell, Su Yu's words drifted into his ears. Cho Ziming is indeed dead, but I was the one who snatched the bloodthirsty dagger from his hands. The person who killed Cho Ziming is you. This was Zhang Yu's last thought, a thought that caused his entire body to tremble. Just what kind of monster had he attacked? Cho Ziming had died at his hands, but he had charged forward greedily, seeking his own death, his eyes closed, his head falling to the ground. The 3 golden swords flew into Su Yu's palm with a gliding sound. Space element, huh? Seems like it is convenient to use. Su Yu had a satisfied expression, activating the golden swords for the second time. He tried activating the space element. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo had a strong space element. Lu Chuyi had relied on the space element to travel 1,000 miles. The material of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo within the small golden swords was only fragments. Even though the space element was weak, it was enough for the 3 small swords. Chapter 5:21. 2 top-notch half-gods equivalent to Long Wuxin and a frightening existence that surpassed half-gods had been killed so easily. What abilities does he have? This question appeared in the minds of all the lords. Bai Luo's face was ashen. His expression was extremely ugly. Su Yu's abilities were powerful beyond compare. After thinking for some time, a vicious thought flashed past his mind. He leaped behind Lord Yu like the wind, grabbing the bloodthirsty dagger. Lord Yu felt that something was amiss. Her figure flashed forward, wanting to avoid it. But Bailuo was prepared. He weaved signs with one hand, and multiple space vortexes surrounded Lord EU. After which, the bloodthirsty dagger extended forward, pressing against Lord EU's back. He let out a low grunt, "Don't move." The incident was too sudden, catching everyone off guard. How could the people of the Lords of Darkness have expected that their leader, Bailuo, would suddenly attack his own people? "Bailuo, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" Lord Qing, Zhu said in shock. Bailuo let out a heavy grunt. "All of you shut up." His authority was still present, and the rest of the lords did not dare say anything. So he was a little surprised. He glanced at Lord EU, who was being held hostage, and could not help but feel suspicious. Logically speaking, his identity as the Black Snow Devil King was somewhat related to Lord EU. Holding Lord EU hostage could indeed restrict the Black Snow Devil King. But his current identity was Inu, and he was not related to Lord EU in the slightest. What was the point of threatening him? "Inu, you do not wish for her to die, right? Let me live, otherwise I'll kill her immediately," Bailuo said coldly. "I have already investigated the relationship between the two of you. Your original name is Su Yu, and you have a close relationship with our Lord EU, right?" Oh, had they already investigated In Yu's true identity? Su Yu was not surprised. With the power of the Empire of Darkness, it was not difficult for them to investigate his background after such a long time. Lord Qing Zhu's expression changed. He had heard the name Su Yu many times. He had heard it from Lord EU's mouth time and time again. His name had been repeated over and over again, appearing over and over again. That was Su Yu, the confidant of Shenyue Island, the one who could let EU see the prosperity of the world in his place. That was the only person who could cause the calm EU to reveal complicated emotions. That was the name that Qing Zhu hated the most. Su Yu Inu. So what? I don't remember ever having any relations with your Lord EU, Su Yu said coldly. Indeed, he would not watch as Lord EU met with danger. However, he would not compromise for a woman he had only met once. After hearing what was said, Lord Qing Zhu's face was filled with anger. He had even forgotten that Su Yu could kill him with a raise of his hand. "Shut up. Everyone in the world can say that they have nothing to do with her, but you." His eyes were filled with unwillingness and deep disdain. Su Yu creased his brows. He could not think of how he had wronged Lord EU to make Lord Qing Zhu so agitated. Bailuo let out a ferocious laugh. His laugh was unusually cruel. "Haha, it looks like you still do not know EU's true appearance." Among the 7 Lords of Darkness, the only one who had seen Lord EU's true appearance was Lord Qing Zhu. Apart from that, her face was always covered by a mist, and no one knew her true appearance. True appearance? In that instant, Su Yu suddenly remembered the experience of fighting alongside her in the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds. In that instant, he felt that Lord EU looked like someone else. Unknowingly, Su Yu's heart thumped. "Ha, she is," Bailuo said mockingly. But his voice stopped abruptly. Her face suddenly stiffened, and her skin quickly turned captivating red. Countless amounts of blood spurted out from his pores. His flesh was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if all the water in his body had been sucked out. Lord EU had unknowingly held a pitch-black iced jade needle in her hand. She had stabbed it into Bailuo's body. The feather needle of darkness is the treasure that the King of Darkness carries with him. Bailuo shouted in shock. Lord Qing Zhu was also shocked. How could this be? The feather needle of darkness is a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact that only the King of Darkness can pass down. Could the King of Darkness have passed the throne to EU? Su Yu's pupils also turned serious. The feather needle of darkness? What a powerful, semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. Its use seemed to strengthen a certain aspect of its owner's abilities. Lord EU specialized in water techniques, and had strengthened her water techniques by more than 10 times. She had so easily injured the half-god Bailuo. Impossible. The Empire of Darkness is mine. It belongs to me, Bailuo. Bailuo let out a furious roar. The fact that the treasure was in her hands meant that the King of Darkness was still alive, and that he had passed the throne to Lord EU. The next king of darkness was not Bai Luo, but Yu. Unable to accept this reality, Bai Luo spun the bloodthirsty dagger in his hand, slicing at her beautiful neck. Su Yu's pupils dilated. Lord Qing Zhu let out a loud roar, but it was too late. With a creak, Lord Yu's head flew into the air. But after it flew into the air, her body suddenly turned into a ball of mist. This was the water substitute. Bai Luo's expression changed. He was about to retreat, but there was a flash of water behind him, once again turning into Lord Yu. At this moment, the mist on her face had already dispersed, revealing her true appearance. It was a beautiful and ethereal face that was like that of a fairy from a painting. Her skin was fair and supple, with a tinge of pink within. It was flawless like jade, as if it had been congealed to perfection. Beneath her long eyelashes was a pair of clear and peaceful eyes. They were pure, without any filth in the world. Suddenly, a fairy from a painting who had emerged from the water, untainted by the dust of the world. Her beauty was suffocatingly beautiful. At that moment, hundreds of flowers lost their color. There was no beauty in the world that could compare to the beauty of the lady in front of them. In front of her, all the beautiful things were ashamed of their inferiority. The countless men of the 7 lords of darkness were all stunned by her beauty. They had once been curious about the face covered by the mist, but they had never thought that it would be as beautiful as a fairy from a painting. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating, causing the entire space-time to suffocate. Su Yu was stunned. His eyes went from unfamiliar to familiar, then to astonishment, and finally to deep shock. That face belonged to Xia Jingyu. It was the Xia Jingyu after 3 years. Back then, Xia Jingyu had only been 14 years old. Although she was beautiful and beautiful, she was still a little immature. Now, Xia Jingyu, who was 17 years old, looked as if she had been reborn. She was even more beautiful. Her beauty was dazzling, stunning, and dreamy. If she had been a fairy from a painting in the past, the current Xia Jingyu was a real fairy. Chapter 522. Even the enraged Bai Luo was shocked by such a beautiful face. He had not expected Lord Yu's hidden face to be so beautiful. Countless people had been conquered by that beautiful face. Coupled with that indifferent and otherworldly aura, it was even more intoxicating, infatuated, and forgetful. Bai Luo, I did not want to touch you. Even though you tried to kill me many times, I did not want to kill you so easily. You are someone the king has chosen, and I am indebted to the king. Xia Jingyu's red lips gently parted, and her expression was indifferent. However, in the next moment, her bright eyes were covered by a layer of icy coldness. However, you have done something that cannot be forgiven. Bai Luo looked at the feather of darkness needle in her hands in fear. He clenched his teeth, grabbed the bloodthirsty dagger, and retreated quickly. At that moment, Xia Jingyu raised her left hand, grabbing at Bai Luo. Creak! The blood and water in the half-god Bai Luo's body suddenly started to move violently. Bai Luo's body was like a ball of water that was about to burst, continuously expanding. Finally, with a bang, his body exploded from the inside out, turning into minced meat that splattered in all directions. The leader of the 7 lords of darkness, Bai Luo, had been killed just like that. He deserved to die under the judgment of the feather of darkness needle. At that moment, Xia Jingyu sighed. You should not have threatened Brother Su Yu. You can threaten me, but threatening him is unforgivable. The faces of the 7 lords of darkness were filled with respect. As Lord Qing Zhu pondered, he looked at the rest of the lords, all of them kneeling on one knee. Welcome, King. With the feather of darkness needle passed down by the empire, Xia Jingyu was already the king of darkness. No need for formalities, I'm only temporarily keeping it. Xia Jingyu waved her hands, helping them up. Her slender hands grabbed the air, grabbing the bloodthirsty dagger back. On that breathtakingly beautiful face, 2 patches of crimson clouds suddenly appeared. A pair of clear, snow-white eyes constantly flashed with ripples of light. She lowered her head, not daring to raise her head to look at the figure in front of her. Before they had met, she had looked forward to meeting him. But now that they had finally met, she felt uneasy and afraid. Xia Jingyu was perplexed by her nervousness and fear. Jingyu, so you didn't hide his excitement at all? And he strode over to her. He opened his arms and wanted to give Xia Jingyu a hug that he had not seen for a long time. However, her beautiful face was slightly unfamiliar, which made Suyu feel inexplicably awkward. He put down his arm unconsciously and called out her name softly when he was only 5 feet away from her. At this moment, Xia Jingyu was so nervous that her entire body was taut. Her small hands tightly gripped onto her clothes, and her face gradually turned red. She looked like a shy little girl. Seeing this scene, Lord Qingzhu's pupils gradually dilated, and he suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain. That never-before-seen expression was enough to explain everything. Xia Jingyu had already given her heart to the man in front of her. Suyu, brother. They hadn't met each other for a long time, so Xia Jingyu didn't know what to do. She couldn't even speak fluently, and it was extremely difficult for her to say the words Brother Suyu. Suyu also felt a bit awkward and didn't know what to say. Brother Yu's dagger. Xia Jingyu handed the bloodthirsty dagger over, her head still lowered, not daring to look at Suyu's eyes. Suyu took it, and his fingers inadvertently touched her palm. It was warm and soft, like a ball of water. Xia Jingyu's palm trembled, and she quickly retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. Her red face gradually turned red, and her heart thumped wildly. Seeing this shy scene, Suyu felt a sense of familiarity from the past. It was as if Xia Jingyu had always been the shy in front of him. The unfamiliarity and estrangement faded, and Suyu relaxed. He laughed softly. After so many years, Jingyu has become so beautiful that I don't even dare to recognize you. A girl really changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Hearing the familiar voice and tone, Xia Jingyu's nervousness inexplicably eased. At this moment, she finally raised her head and looked at Suyu. It was still that handsome face, and it was still that pair of deep black eyes. The only difference was that the eyes that had once been mature and wise, as well as the youthful face that didn't match them, were gone. Moreover, Suyu had grown a lot taller. 3 years ago, he was as tall as her, but now he was half a head taller than her. You have also changed a lot, brother Yu, Xia Jingyu said softly. The two of them looked at each other, then suddenly smiled. To think that we would meet here. Xia Jingyu smiled sweetly. Her smile was like a flower, beautiful beyond compare. Suyu was stunned, momentarily lost in thought. Suyu could not help but click his tongue. The current Xia Jingyu was a little too beautiful. Cough, cough. Let's talk as we walk. This is a place to comprehend the legacy. We can enter to comprehend it. Suyu awkwardly averted his gaze. Sensing Suyu's absent-mindedness, Xia Jingyu blushed, but she was inexplicably happy. She lightly nodded. I will listen to Brother Suyu. After a pause, Xia Jingyu suddenly asked, what about them? She looked at Lord Qingzhu and the others, hesitating. Suyu calmly looked back at them. Get them to leave the 5 peaks as soon as possible. It would be best if they could find a place to hide. The dangers of the 5 peaks are far beyond their expectations. The crystal bees and a few JoJo geniuses that we encountered just now were the most common people here. They're not even considered dangerous. Hearing this, the 7 Lords of Darkness and the others were shocked. That kind of existence was not the most dangerous. Lord Qingzhu was unwilling to let Xia Jingyu leave with Suyu just like that. But Xia Jingyu did not even retort. She obediently followed Suyu's orders. She turned to Lord Qingzhu and the others. Listen to Brother Yu. His words are not false. I order you in the name of the king to leave the 5 peaks immediately and find a safe place to hide. You're not allowed to leave during this period of time. I will meet up with you when the time comes. In the name of the king, even if Lord Qingzhu wanted to follow, he did not have the guts to do so. He clenched his teeth and left unwillingly. Lord Qingzhu seems to care a lot about you, Suyu said. In their previous encounters, it seemed that Lord Qingzhu was especially concerned about Xia Jingyu. Hearing this, Xia Jingyu was a little flustered. She nervously explained, We're just friends. Brother Yu, don't misunderstand. Misunderstand what? Suyu was stunned. I would be surprised if Lord Qingzhu did not fall for such a beautiful woman like you. But if Jingyu were to look for a husband in the future, you should consider it. With your talent and beauty, there would definitely be better choices. So you looked down on Lord Qingzhu. He did not know what his character was like, but his abilities did not match Xia Jingyu's. Chapter 5:23. Her joy at reuniting with him was instantly doused by his words. Indeed, Suyu was already a married man, and he had only ever treated her as a close friend. Even though she was more beautiful than Qin Xian'er, and even though he was the only one in her heart, Xia Jingyu's lips quivered as she clenched her fists and followed behind Suyu. After hesitating for a long time, she said in a low voice that only she could hear, "What if I wish for that person to be you?" Although Xia Jingyu's voice was very weak, it could still be heard clearly in the silence. Suyu, who was walking in front of her, was startled. He stopped in his tracks as his heart thumped several times. He was an experienced person, and he clearly understood the meaning behind her words. Although he and Xia Jingyu had shared a bed for a short while on Shenyue Island, Xia Jingyu had shed tears because of the damage to her reputation. Although he had shared a bed with Xia Jingyu for a short period of time on the Mystic Moon Island, the Xia Jingyu at that time had shed a few tears due to the damage to her reputation. Since then, Suyu had only felt respect for Xia Jingyu, and he had never had any improper thoughts about her. Since then, Suyu had only felt respect for Xia Jingyu, and he had never had any improper thoughts about her. But now, hearing such words from Xia Jingyu, Suyu did not expect them. As he turned his head to look at Xia Jingyu, Suyu's heart was filled with joy. Xia Jingyu was the most perfect woman he had ever seen in his 2 lives. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating, and her temperament was as gentle as water. She had an otherworldly temperament, and every aspect of her was perfect. Suyu also hoped that his future wife would be as perfect as her. However, he already had a fiancée, and she was not as beautiful as Xia Jingyu. She was not as gentle as Xia Jingyu, and she was not as elegant as Xia Jingyu. But she was sometimes cute, sometimes lovable, and sometimes strange. There had never been a woman who occupied her place in Suyu's heart. Xia Jingyu did not lower her head, but instead looked at Suyu's eyes and waited for his answer. She wanted to answer him now. Suyu muttered to himself for a while, then looked at her beautiful face and shrugged his shoulders. He smiled and said, "I am not good enough for you. There is probably no one in this world who is good enough for such a perfect woman." Hearing this, Xia Jingyu's gloomy heart gradually brightened up and was once again filled with radiance. It wasn't that Suyu didn't like her, he just felt that he wasn't good enough for her. His reply caused Xia Jingyu to heave a sigh of relief, and her face regained its usual radiance. Her beautiful face was so beautiful that no one dared to look at it directly. "I was just joking." Xia Jingyu smiled. Even her voice was filled with joy. Was this a joke? Suyu also heaved a sigh of relief. The 2 of them entered the forest. There were many signs of intruders in the forest. It seemed that they had been broken by someone a long time ago. Suyu sighed inwardly. He did not have much expectation. Sure enough, after entering the heart of the forest, there was an extremely ancient and dilapidated wall standing in the middle. On the wall, there was a residual fluorescent light, and there was a vague flickering image. As he stood near the wall, Suyu could feel his soul sublimate, and his thoughts quickly entered a certain smooth state. The cultivation technique that was once difficult to comprehend now had a deeper level of comprehension. All of Suyu's cultivation flashed through his mind. Heaven's Son gazing at air technique, Thousand Thunder Finger, Buddha Saint's 8 characters, 2nd grade clone technique. All of these slowly flowed through his mind like light and shadow. So he was excited. He could faintly feel that in this wondrous state, he could quickly comprehend some of these cultivation techniques. But the fluorescent light on the wall suddenly dimmed, and Suyu quickly withdrew from his comprehension. The smooth feeling immediately disappeared, causing Suyu to feel a sense of regret. "I'm too late." This wall was once imbued with some kind of great magical power. Anyone who gets close to it can increase their comprehension. But over the years, it has been continuously used by people. Now, the effects are very weak. A deep sense of regret lingered in his eyes. Xia Jingyu, who had been paying attention to Su Yu, covered her mouth and laughed. Even Brother Yu has times when he is defeated. In her memory, there was nothing Su Yu couldn't do. He had never failed in anything he set his mind on. Su Yu laughed at himself. I have suffered many hardships while cultivating in the Jinlong continent. Hearing this, Xia Jingyu's heart ached. She had been extremely lucky. She had immediately cultivated under the King of Darkness upon arriving at the Jinlong continent. She had never suffered any hardship or danger. As for Su Yu, he had walked step by step through life and death situations. Brother Yu, if you don't mind, why don't I help you with your comprehension? Xia Jingyu smiled sweetly, extending her fair palm. Su Yu froze, not understanding what she meant. Brother Yu, have you forgotten? My divine decree came from you, and we share the same origin. When our divine decrees fuse, you can borrow my comprehension. Xia Jingyu's face was slightly red. This was a unique connection between Su Yu and her. In the whole world, Su Yu was the only one who could rely on such a method to comprehend with her powers of comprehension. Su Yu froze, suddenly remembering that in the evil forest of the sanctuary, he had fused his divine decree with her and had comprehended cultivation techniques together. With the fusion, his comprehension had been even smoother. As for Xia Jingyu's comprehension, Su Yu, under his control of time and space, could barely surpass Xia Jingyu's by 20 times. One could imagine how nature-defying her comprehension was. Looking at her soft, snow-white hand, Su Yu hesitated for a moment, then extended his hand and intertwined his fingers with hers. Xia Jingyu's heart was beating wildly, and her face was flushed. She felt as if her palm was being enveloped by a warm flame, and it was extremely comfortable. Su Yu also had a strange feeling. With an embarrassed look, he said, "Let's begin." The two of them sat down cross-legged. With Su Yu's pure divine decree, he did not need to deliberately use it to display the lowest level of nature divine decree. Xia Jingyu's divine decree had also reached the shocking divine grade realm, and she could emit the nature divine decree with just a wave of her hand. When the two divine decrees fused, their souls reached a certain resonance. As such, Su Yu was able to make use of Xia Jingyu's extraordinary perception. The moment they fused, Su Yu's soul suddenly rose to a higher level, and his thoughts became extremely smooth. It was as if the world had never been clearer and clearer. This smoothness, this sudden enlightenment, this ethereal feeling was something that Su Yu had never experienced before. Compared to Xia Jingyu 3 years ago, her current comprehension was more than 100 times stronger. In other words, compared to a normal person, Xia Jingyu's comprehension was 1,000 times stronger. Even a divine master would not be able to possess this kind of inhuman comprehension, let alone a fairy. Even the comprehension legacy that Tianjizi had left behind could not be compared to this terrifying state before him. Su Yu's heart was filled with boundless shock. No matter how slow he was, he could understand that this was not a comprehension that a human could possess. Was Xia Jingyu really a human? Chapter 5:24. The techniques in his mind were activated at the same time. What used to be a difficult comprehension was now smooth and unobstructed. After the 9 fingers of imaginary thunder had been cultivated to stage 2 top class, it had not progressed any further. Yet now, it was like a geyser that had directly stepped into the 3rd level, and it was swiftly climbing towards perfection. Layers of purple fog appeared on the surface of Su Yu's body. It was dreamy and illusory, like a dense fog. But if one looked closely, they would realize that it contained a shocking power of lightning. The fog gave off an unreal feeling. It seemed real, but also like a dream. It was difficult to tell what was real and what was real. At that moment, Su Yu, who was in the middle of comprehension, slowly raised his finger. The lightning fog gathered at his fingertip, sometimes turning into a lifelike bird, sometimes into a worm, and sometimes into other objects. After transforming into dozens of objects, Xia Jingyu, who was at the side, was shocked to realize that the illusions were extremely real. She could not tell what was real and what was fake. This was the last stage of the Thousand Thunder Finger, the Phantom Thunder Finger. Using lightning to transform into anything was similar to an illusion technique. But because lightning was the main element, the illusion technique contained a powerful killing intent. Not long after, the fog around Suyu's body suddenly became denser. He had successfully comprehended stage 3 upper class. The lightning fog transformed into things that were even more realistic. If one did not see it with their own eyes, it would be difficult to tell that it was an illusion. Finally, the lightning fog transformed once again. It was filled with spirituality. This was a sign of stage 3 top class. Suddenly, Suyu stopped cultivating. The lightning fog surrounding his body formed a human figure. It was Suyu himself. His appearance, clothes, cultivation level, temperament, and even his state of life were all lifelike. The two of them sat side by side. Xia Jingyu could not tell the difference between the illusion and the real person. I finally cultivated it to top class. So he let out a long sigh. He had cultivated the Thousand Thunder Finger for a long time and had finally reached top class. The Phantom Thunder Finger at stage 3 had a hallucinatory effect. This was something Suyu had not expected. While attacking, lightning could transform at any time. Even Suyu would find it difficult to deal with it. As for its actual power, Suyu was looking forward to someone finding trouble with him and testing it out. Suyu was extremely grateful for such a great benefit. Xia Jingyu's heart was abnormally satisfied. She had never been so happy before. She smiled and said, "Brother Yu, what other techniques do you have? Let's comprehend them together." Suyu would not be courteous, so he immediately closed his eyes. Heaven's Sun, Gazing at Air, Buddhist Saints' 8 characters, and second-grade clone art were swiftly comprehended in his mind. After a short while, the spiritual energy in Suyu's body suddenly gushed out from the top of his head while he was training. The spiritual energy then split into 2 figures. One of them was dark green in color, while the other was transparent. This was the second clone. When the second-grade clone art was cultivated to the extreme, one would be able to form 3 clones. However, because it was a remnant, he could only cultivate it to the second level and have 2 clones. But these 2 were enough. At this point, the cultivation of the second-grade clone technique, which was not too difficult, was considered complete. Next was the Providence Saints' 8 characters and the Heaven's Sun Gazing at Air. Buddhist Saints' 8 characters was a severely damaged remnant. It used to have 4 levels, but now only 1 remained. It was split into entry, lower class, upper class, and top class. Suyu had only cultivated it to the lower class and could form the word army. When he shouted it, it was as if there were thousands of soldiers and horses. The sound was shocking, and the power was extremely strong. Unfortunately, it could not keep up with the changes in his abilities. He had not used it in a long time. Now was the time to make a breakthrough. Holding his breath, Suyu quickly entered a state of comprehension. Many areas that he had not fully grasped were now easily comprehended. However, the comprehension of a legendary level technique was still extremely difficult, even with 1,000 times the normal level of comprehension. Immortal level techniques like Thousand Thunder Finger and second-grade clone art were comprehended in a short while. However, this legendary level technique was difficult to shake. This comprehension lasted for a full hour. Xia Jingyu had been using her divine decree for a long time. She felt a little dizzy, but Suyu was at a crucial point in his breakthrough, so he clenched his teeth and endured. Another hour passed, but Suyu still had not broken through the bottleneck. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, 2 figures suddenly flashed over from the distant clouds. One of them was the green-haired Shi Jie, leading the way. The other was Ming Fei. In other words, it was Shangge, a heavenly ghost with the abilities of the fairy realm. "My lady, it is here," Shi Jie said. He had been ordered to check on the legacy of the 5 mountains and realized that the 7 lords of darkness and the geniuses of Jiuzhou were fighting over it. Ming Fei's eyes flashed. She looked at the broken wall in the center, her expression turning serious. "This is the legacy you were talking about? It has long been destroyed by someone." Shi Jie shuddered, hurriedly kneeling and begging for mercy. But Ming Fei could not be bothered with him. Her gaze quickly landed on the two people cultivating below the stone wall. Inyu. Ming Fei froze. Previously, in the stone forest, Su Yu had turned the tide. At the critical moment, he had found a path of survival for them. She remembered it vividly. Her gaze skipped past Inyu and landed on Xia Jingyu beside him. At first, she was confused. She felt that the clothes and figure were familiar. After a closer look, her eyes were filled with killing intent. "It's you, my servant, you?" Ming Fei raised her brows, a murderous look on her face. When she sensed that EU had entered a critical stage of her cultivation, she could not help but let out a cold laugh. "You did not expect to meet me here, did you? Did you and the Black Snow Devil King harm me badly?" Because of their betrayal, she had been severely injured by the sloppy old man and had yet to recover. She still bore a grudge against him to this day. And now, she had met one of them, Lord EU. Xia Jingyu could not help but complain. She had to appear at such a critical moment. Su Yu was at a critical juncture, and she could not escape. If she awakened Su Yu, his comprehension would be forcefully interrupted. Furthermore, with Su Yu's personality, he would definitely fight Shang Gu to the death for her. If that happened, she would implicate Su Yu. Xia Jingyu let out a sigh of relief, forcing herself to calm down. "Shang Gu, can we talk about our grudge later? Inyu has no grudge against you." Ming Fei observed Su Yu with a smile that was not a smile. I did not expect him to be so lucky to have such a beautiful lady like you protecting him. His luck with women is not bad. Speaking of which, I owe him a favor for being able to reach the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion alive. I didn't intend to make things difficult for him. I still do things like repaying a debt of gratitude from time to time. Hearing this, Xia Jingyu let out a long sigh. But suddenly, Shang Gu let out a cold laugh. "But I have changed my mind. The more you care about him, the more I cannot let him go. This is the price for betraying me. Furthermore, he has a few decent treasures on him that are suitable for me. I cannot think of a reason to let him go." The Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation and the Eternal Stone King armor were precious items to the injured Ming Fei. Xia Jingyu froze, her expression bitter as she looked at Su Yu apologetically. Creak. Xia Jingyu took out the feather needle of darkness from her sleeves, calmly saying, "This semi-manufactured spiritual artifact can temporarily push my cultivation level to the fairy realm. Once I reach the limit of the fairy realm, I will be transported out. At that time, it will be impossible for you to take revenge. Of course, before I leave, I will use one last attack to force you out. At that time, you, with your true form exposed, will be transported out as well." Ming Fei observed the feather needle of darkness, her expression turning serious. "Very good. You still have such a treasure. I have underestimated the Zhenlong continent. But if you are threatening me, you have miscalculated. Even if I have to sacrifice this body of mine, I will kill the both of you." Ming Fei's expression was filled with stubbornness. Xia Jingyu's expression changed. As a ghost, Shang Gu was stubborn. Her threat just now had the opposite effect. If that was the case, she could only activate the feather needle of darkness to break through the limit and perish together with Shang Gu. But at that moment, Shang Gu suddenly said, "But there is no meaning in killing you just like that. If you can withstand a palm from me, I can consider letting the both of you go." Withstand a palm? Even if her cultivation level was restricted to below the fairy realm, it would not be a problem for her to use it to the limit of the immortal realm. That kind of attack would definitely kill her. It looked like a fair suggestion, but it was actually filled with killing intent. There was no way she could survive. Think about it carefully. Rather than letting the both of you die together, why not help the other person? I have been extremely benevolent toward the both of you. Xia Jingyu struggled for a moment, looking at Su Yu. Finally, she clenched her teeth. "Fine, I agree. Using the feather needle of darkness to strengthen her water-based cultivation techniques might still be possible, even though the chances were slim. Since you have made up your mind, stand still obediently." A cruel smile flashed past Ming Fei's eyes. She had broken through to the fairy realm many years ago. She was completely confident that she could kill a human king with a treasure. In her eyes, Suyu was just trying his luck and seeking his own death. Once she was killed, Inyu's fate would not be any better. Xia Jingyu looked at Suyu deeply, taking in his face for the last time. After committing his face to memory, Xia Jingyu prepared to turn around. Suddenly, her palm was grabbed by a warm and strong hand. Suyu, who was sitting cross-legged, had opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with emotion. At this moment, the only person who would die for him without hesitation was Xia Jingyu. You have given up on your cultivation? Xia Jingyu's face was filled with guilt. I'm sorry, I have implicated you. Suyu looked at her deeply, at this pure and beautiful girl. His heart was filled with gratitude. He smiled. My cultivation technique is important, but you're more important. At that moment, Xia Jingyu's heart thumped wildly. Her face turned red, her heart filled with an indescribable joy. Gently pulling Xia Jingyu's body back, Suyu took a step forward. His calm gaze landed on Ming Fei. The grudge between us shall end here, he said calmly. From the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds to this place, there was indeed a need to end things. To make up for the 3 chapters that had erupted the day before. Chapter 525. Settle it? With just you? Ming Fei did not reply. Instead, Shi Jie took a step forward, casually sizing up Suyu. A genius of Jiuzhou, his chin was raised, full of arrogance, as if he was questioning Suyu. Suyu's eyes were focused on Ming Fei. With his soul eyes, he could see Shang Ji's virtual image on her body. As for Shi Jie's questioning, Suyu turned a deaf ear. Do I need to repeat what I asked you? Shi Jie crossed his arms, extremely confident. You really think you can look down on me, just because you are from the Jiuzhou returning principal palace? Hearing this, Suyu glanced at him, indifferently saying, Don't you know my background? Why ask so many times? In the stone forest, Suyu had shone brilliantly. Shi Jie had been at the side. How could he not recognize Suyu? Purposely questioning Suyu to gain the right to speak. Hearing such an answer, Shi Jie became serious, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. It seems that you really think too highly of yourself. Suyu once again looked at Shenggu, ignoring Shi Jie. Shenggu, on the other hand, smiled faintly and did not stop Shi Jie. Humph, you want to settle your grudge with my master? Let me test you first to see if you have the right to do so. Shi Jie's green hair glowed with a green light, his body surrounded by a cool breeze. His figure blurred and disappeared. The Shi clan, one of the 8 great ancient clans, had unique movement techniques. However, just as he was about to reach her, Xia Jingyu shifted her feet and calmly said, I think it's better for me to face you again. On the mysterious heavenly stage, Shi Jie had fought with Xia Jingyu, but he had been defeated in 3 moves. With a whistle in the air, Shi Jie's figure appeared. His eyes were filled with a cold smile. Lord Yu, the humiliation from that defeat has been etched in my heart. I have long wanted to fight you again to avenge my humiliation. Since you are willing to fight, I shall accept your challenge. But this time, I am afraid the victor between us will be reversed. After Master's guidance, I am no longer the Shi Jie of the past. Shi Jie's body was bursting with confidence. Xia Jingyu's expression was still calm, but there was a hint of fear in her eyes. When she had fought with Shi Jie that day, it could be said that she had easily suppressed him without any difficulty. It had only been 2 months, but he was already this confident. There must be some clues. Prepare to receive my attack. Shi Jie's whole body erupted with an extremely strong aura, and there was even a faint trace of true qi flowing. Suyu's gaze swept past his dantian, and he could not help but be slightly surprised. Vital energy crystals. Back at the heavenly mystery platform, he was just an ordinary human king. In such a short time, not only did he break through to the demigod realm, but he also successfully condensed a vital energy crystal and became a half-immortal. However, after thinking about it, it was understandable. Suyu was able to undergo a complete transformation and obtain an unimaginable increase in his abilities, let alone Shi Jie, who was following a fairy realm. Xia Jingyu also sensed that something was wrong from the aura. Her eyes flashed, and she immediately made her move. The mist around his body condensed into 12 water dragons. In the past, it was precisely this kind of move that had beaten Jie to the point where he couldn't even fight back and ended up in a sorry state. Now, facing the same move again, Jie revealed a mocking smile. Still the same water path? All right, I'll let you see the difference between us today. Whirlwind and clouds. Jie's figure spun on the spot, and with him, as the center, a green tornado suddenly appeared. The wind was filled with shocking wind energy, already exceeding that of a normal wind origin. The 12 water dragons roared as they charged toward Jie. He wore a cold smile, lifting his finger and pointing. At once, the green tornado moved horizontally. The 12 water dragons tried to go around the tornado, but when they were within 1,000 feet of the tornado, they met with an unimaginable force that swept the 12 water dragons into the tornado. After a moment of stalemate, the 12 water dragons were sucked into the tornado like fallen leaves. They were torn into pieces by the tornado at a speed visible to the naked eye. After fighting for 2 months, Jie had achieved a complete victory. Too weak. Jie shook his head coldly, his face filled with mockery. If this is the abilities of the 7 Lords of Darkness, it is too disappointing. Xia Jingyu's expression was calm, her hands forming signs at the same time. This time, it was not 12 water dragons, but 30 water path techniques that were used at the same time. All sorts of techniques with different powers suppressed Jie at the same time. The combined power was more than 10 times that of the water dragons. Oh, looks like you have made some progress, but Jie casually commented, but you are still too weak. Destroy. Jie's eyes flashed coldly, his 5 fingers pressing downwards. With a loud rumble, 9 more tornadoes appeared around the tornado. The 10 tornadoes merged into one, becoming a giant dragon that was 10,000 feet tall, shaking the entire forest and setting off waves of wind. With an angry roar, the wind dragon stirred. The many combined techniques that attacked were not even able to penetrate the wind dragon in the slightest. They were crushed by the wind dragon's absolute power. After his strength had increased, Jie was terrifying. Too weak. Jie could not hide the madness on his face. He looked up to the sky and laughed. Do you dare to be a little stronger? Xia Jingyu's footsteps slowly retreated, but her hands continued to display her techniques, one after another, one after the other. Jie, who was standing in the air, was full of vigor. With a wave of his hand, he commanded the wind dragon to crush everything. Weak. Too weak. Is this all you have? After 10 rounds, Jie completely crushed her, laughing maniacally. There is nothing more exhilarating than to trample on an old enemy. Xia Jingyu's face turned slightly pale, retreating continuously. At this moment, she had already retreated to Su Yu's side. Jie's eyes glowed. It's over. How disappointing. The geniuses of the Empire of Darkness only amount to this. You did not even make me use my full strength. He pointed with both hands, and the wind dragon descended from the sky with the power to devour mountains and rivers. It completely enveloped Xia Jingyu, swallowing her in one gulp. With the tearing power of the wind dragon, Xia Jingyu could only be torn apart on the spot. The wind dragon descended with a loud rumble. At the moment when it was about to devour Su Yu, who had been standing with his hands clasped behind his back and silently observing the battle, finally moved. He extended a hand, pointing toward the sky. The wind dragon, which was roaring madly and descending, was actually stopped in midair by this finger. Its giant body swayed wildly in the air, but the dragon's head could not break the finger in the slightest. Illusory thunder. Su Yu's expression was calm, spitting out 2 words. At that moment, a shocking scene occurred. The thunder fog on the surface of Su Yu's body surged, turning into a giant 10,000 zhong long lightning dragon, released from the tip of his finger. The lightning dragon flew through the air, opening its mouth to swallow the 10,000 zhong wind dragon. The giant wind dragon struggled within the lightning dragon's body, but with a cold grunt from the lightning dragon, its body reverberated with the sound of thunder. The struggling roar of the wind dragon came to an abrupt stop. The lightning dragon also dissipated, turning into a ball of thunder fog, returning to Su Yu's body. In the time it took to take a breath, the wind dragon was destroyed. Su Yu had destroyed the azure dragon with one finger. Chapter 526. With just a finger, Su Yu had destroyed his most powerful wind dragon. That domineering stance, that invincible state, caused Shi Jie's heart to beat wildly. But what made his pupils shrink was that Su Yu, who had been standing at his original position, had disappeared like the wind. It was a remnant image, and at this moment, like a ghost, a figure appeared behind him with his back facing him. Shi Jie felt a pain in his abdomen. Looking down, he saw that his chest had been pierced through by a finger-sized bloody hole. The remaining bolts of lightning were gradually dispersing. The figure with his back facing him was holding a thunder sword formed from the thunder mist in his hand. He had not even noticed that he had been injured. As the pain assaulted him, Shi Jie's vision darkened as his body fell. As he fell, he could see the sky getting further and further away. He could also see the silver-haired figure standing in the air, not even looking at him. That inhuman, terrifying figure. One move, just one move, destroying the wind dragon and heavily injuring him. In fact, if Su Yu wanted to kill him, he could do so with a thought. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Su Yu was too terrifying. Su Yu calmly looked at the falling Shi Jie, shaking his head in disappointment. Too weak. Shi Jie, who had been shouting that Xia Jingyu was too weak, had received the same evaluation from Su Yu. At this moment, Su Yu floated down and landed beside Xia Jingyu. He grabbed her fair hand and injected spirit energy into it to help her recover. He could not help but scold her. You had the feather needle of darkness. With his abilities, he would not have lasted more than 3 moves from you. Why didn't you use it? When Xia Jingyu heard Su Yu's stern rebuke, she became slightly embarrassed. Her face became slightly flushed as she lowered her head like a child who had made a mistake. She then said in a low voice, "Since Shanggu is here, how could I dare to injure him?" Rather than saying she was fighting Shi Jie, it was more accurate to say she was observing Shangji's expression. If she injured Shi Jie and provoked Shanggu, who was at the fairy realm, to attack, things would become very troublesome. Knowing what she was thinking, Su Yu sighed. "Sorry for making things difficult for you, but don't do it again. The earlier I did it, you would not have had the chance to compromise." The domineering order that could not be disobeyed made Xia Jingyu's heart feel strange. She nodded obediently without any resistance. He stared at Xia Jingyu for a while with a slight headache. She would always do something stupid and self-sacrificing. Su Yu was always worried that one day she would make a sacrifice that Su Yu could not bear. Pa pa pa. Ming Fei waved her sleeves, and a gust of wind caught Shi Jie. She landed on the ground, but her gaze was fixed on Su Yu. She was unusually interested and could not help but applaud, smiling sweetly. "Your immortal level technique is at the top class, and it is a special lightning technique. If I am not wrong, your lightning technique also contains a shred of disastrous thunder." Su Yu patted Xia Jingyu's shoulder and asked her to step back. "Do you have anything to say?" Su Yu asked calmly. Ming Fei pursed her lips and smiled. "I'll give you a chance. During this period of time in the Heavenly Mystery Palace, follow me. Even a mediocre person like Shi Jie can be seen in a new light, let alone someone with extraordinary talent like you. Following me will bring you unimaginable benefits." Hearing this, Su Yu's expression was calm. He shook his head without hesitation. "No need. I think you will not wish for me to continue following you." But Ming Fei's lips curled into a faint smile. "Is that so? I think you will be very willing." Suddenly, a black light flashed in Ming Fei's eyes, radiating a strange ripple. The ripple appeared on the soul level and could not be blocked. It directly invaded Su Yu's soul. Ming Fei's face revealed a proud smile. "None of the people I fancy can escape from my palm." After his soul was invaded, Su Yu's expression was calm. He let out a faint smile. "Haha, Long time no see. Still using the heavenly ghost mind planning technique. Ming Fei was shocked. It has no effect on you? Impossible. How did you do it? Also, how do you know that this is the heavenly ghost mind planning technique? What do you mean by long time no see? Suyu let out a faint smile, a layer of blood-red mist rising from his body. Even his silver hair was dyed red. Apart from the mask, it was the Black Snow Devil King. Haha, Xingge, are you not going to call me Brother Black Snow? Suyu teased. In the past, Xingge had pretended to be a 4 or 5-year-old girl, sweetly hugging her brother and sister. Blood hair, in Ming Fei's mind. A figure that overlapped with it suddenly appeared. Back in the stone forest, when she first saw the silver-haired Inu, she had felt that he looked familiar. But she could not connect that handsome silver-haired kid with the ferocious blood-haired Black Snow Devil King. Now, she finally understood why he looked familiar. That figure was extremely similar. Black, Snow, Devil, King. Ming Fei clenched her teeth, her face becoming blurry. It was Xingge who was within her body. She was so agitated that she almost came out. Thud, thud, thud. Her beautiful eyes were as wide as bells, unable to believe what she was seeing. The Black Snow Devil King, who had fought alongside her in the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds, who had a telepathic connection with her, was Suyu. For a moment, the Black Snow Devil King made her feel like she did when she was with Suyu. Because of that, she had secretly blamed herself for developing feelings for men other than Suyu. Unexpectedly, the only reason she had a good impression of him was because he was Suyu. The shred of guilt in her heart disappeared in an instant. It turned out that the person she had desperately wanted to meet had long since been arranged by fate. Suyu noticed the change in her expression. He turned and smiled. In the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds, he had felt that Lord Yi was extremely similar to Xia Jingyu. To think that it was true, that miraculous encounter caused the two of them to smile as they looked at each other. Enough. You two. This pair of bastards. Ming Fei gnashed her teeth in hatred. Yu and Black Snow. The two of them had caused her to lose face. Especially Suyu. He had pretended to be controlled by the heavenly ghost mind planning technique, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Not only had she helped Suyu improve his body, but she had also helped him snatch the Cosmos Thundersword. More importantly, she had even prepared 2 vital energy crystals for him. Her original intention was for him to break the seal and release her. In the end, at the last moment, this fellow had used her modified body, the Cosmos Thundersword she had snatched, and the vital energy crystal she had prepared to turn around and attack her. Because of him, she had ended up with a body full of injuries. How could she forget such a shameful past? You two bastards, I will not forgive you. The more Xingge thought about it, the angrier she became. Suyu smiled. Is that so? I did not intend to forgive you. Xingge clenched her teeth. You can't even protect yourself, and you still want to harm me? Suyu nodded without hesitation, pointing at Xingge. That's right. From today onwards, you are my servant. No matter who you were in the past or what status you had, from now on, you only have one identity. You are my servant. I will take you today. Chapter 5:27. Slave? Not only was Xingge stunned, even Xia Jingyu was stunned. They had experienced Shang Ji's abilities before in the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds. The absolute difference between them made them despair. Where did Suyu get the courage to subdue her and make her his slave? His tone was shockingly arrogant. Even the sloppy old man guarding the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds would not dare to make such a claim. Xingge could not help but laugh in anger. Inu, Black Snow Devil King, do you really think that my cultivation level is restricted and I am no different from a normal half-fairy? Her abilities were a level higher than Cho Ziming's. Under the circumstances where their cultivation levels were the same, her magical techniques were naturally not something a normal half-fairy could compare to. Suyu was calm. Why don't you try and find out? Suyu's eyes glowed. His body was filled with lightning fog, transforming into various agile forms. In the end, it became a 10-zhong long chain. Shang Ji's laughter gradually faded, replaced by a murderous aura. She said coldly, "The Thunder Dao does have some restraining effects on ghosts like us. However, your Thunder Dao is far from being able to restrain me." Whoosh! A breath ago, Shangge was still standing at the same spot, speaking. A breath later, she had disappeared. When she reappeared, she was beside Suyu like a ghost. Xia Jingyu's heart clenched. Teleportation. This was not something that could be explained by speed. It was teleportation. Shang Ji's expression was cold. She expressionlessly extended 2 fingers. Vital energy pulsed from her fingertips as she pierced through Su Yu's heart from the side of his ribs. How abrupt was that finger? It did not give anyone any time to react. So you could not react either. The lightning fog that he had just formed was instantly broken by the finger. Even Su Yu, who was within it, was mercilessly pierced. She had dealt with Su Yu so easily. This was unexpected. Thud! The lightning fog dissipated, but it was empty. There was no one inside. Xia Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief. She could not help but wonder, could it be an illusion? If that was the case, how powerful was the hallucinatory effect of the lightning fog? Even the heavenly ghost could not see through it. Shang Ji's expression was calm, as if she was not surprised. She said softly, "It is indeed an illusion. Although this lightning Dao cultivation technique is only at the true spirit level, it is still extraordinary. When cultivated to perfection, it has a faint hint of a legendary cultivation technique." After speaking, Shang Ji's cold eyes were like lightning. Her eyes were filled with black mist as she scanned the void. All of a sudden, he slapped at the space beside him. Creak! At that moment, a bolt of lightning descended. It was Su Yu, who was using the thunder escape technique. Shungo was actually able to accurately predict the location where Su Yu would appear and attack that place in advance. However, Su Yu was already prepared for this. Before he even took a step forward, a small golden sword turned into a golden fragmentary thread and flew toward him. Shunge had no choice but to retract the palm that she had used to attack Su Yu. She grabbed the small golden sword instead. With a swish, the small golden sword that had turned into a broken thread was firmly caught by a slender jade-like palm. Semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. It seems to contain some decent materials. Shunge was slightly surprised. She looked satisfied. "This sword belongs to me now." She grabbed the sword, intending to throw it into her space storage artifact. She seemed to be grabbing it casually, but the golden sword did not budge no matter how much it struggled. "Don't waste your energy. I will take your magical treasure." Shunge felt a sense of satisfaction from taking revenge. However, at that moment, her expression changed. Her hand had suddenly grabbed empty air. The small golden sword had disappeared into thin air. It had teleported away from her hand. Space element. Shunge was a little surprised. She was a little shocked. She was also angry from the humiliation of grabbing empty air. Semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. This is what you're so proud of? Shunge let out a cold grunt. If that is the case, the grudge between us can indeed end here. After speaking, Shang Ji's body became a blur. She teleported again. At that moment, the dissipating thunder fog had finally dispersed completely. However, it was not completely empty. There was a small sword that was emitting a cold, golden glow. It floated quietly. At the moment when Shanggu teleported, her attention was diverted. A small golden sword shot out without warning. A cold golden sword shot toward Shunga like a venomous snake, leaving a series of afterimages in its wake. Sensing the movement behind her, the expression of the teleported Shunga changed. Shunga had no time to think. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of black ghost energy. It transformed into a ghost face that was as thick as half a chapter. Slap! The golden remnant line collided with the ghost face, but it was as if it had collided with something soft and flexible. Her reaction was fast. The small golden sword was hard and sharp. Moreover, it contained the space element. If she used a hard shield to block it, it would most likely be torn apart by the golden sword. However, the soft shield, which used softness to overcome hardness, cleverly restrained the strong points of the golden sword. In a short moment of danger, Shungu was able to use her instincts to take the most suitable defense. One could see how experienced she was in battle. I have experienced this many times. It is useless against me. Ghost energy flickered around Shang-Ji's body. A large amount of ghost energy turned into 3 ghost faces that circled around her, ready to deal with the golden sword with the space element at any time. Suyu's expression changed. He felt a little troubled. The enemy before him was very different from an ordinary half-fairy. However, Suyu's reaction had always been fast. After one of the golden swords was repelled, he weaved signs with one hand without hesitation. He retrieved one of the small golden swords. The space flickered, and he appeared behind the other small golden sword. 2 semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts, made by the same person. It looks like they are a pair of magical treasures. Such wealth is not small. It looks like your luck is not average. To be able to obtain 2 semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts from the relic. Suyu did not reply. He weaved signs with one hand, controlling the 2 golden swords. The 2 golden swords changed their strategy. They did not attack individually. Instead, they formed a line, connecting their heads and tails as they shot towards Suyu. Shungu pointed with her finger, and one of the ghost faces blocked the trajectory of the golden swords. Slap. As usual, when the golden swords pierced the soft ghost faces, they were immediately repelled. However, at this moment, the tip of the second golden sword, which was following closely behind, unhesitatingly pointed at the tail of the golden sword that was about to be repelled. Borrowing the force, the first golden sword, which was about to be repelled, pierced deep into the ghost face. Hoo! The ghost face distorted, dispersing on the spot. Shungu raised her eyebrows. She raised her hand, and the second ghost face blocked the attack naturally. Hoo! However, the 2 golden swords struck the second ghost face in the same way. Shang-Ji's expression finally changed, and she sent the third ghost face over. The 2 golden swords rotated continuously, but their power was gradually exhausted. They were unable to break through the third ghost face, and they were stuck in a stalemate. Shungu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Her gaze turned cold, and she opened her mouth to spit out another mouthful of ghost energy. However, at this moment, something strange happened. A third golden sword light had appeared on Shang-Ji's back. Chapter 528. Even though Shungu had been on guard against Suyu, she had not expected the existence of a third golden sword. Suyu actually had 3 of the same semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts. This sword was an absolute killing move. Shang-Ji's heart skipped a beat, as if it had missed a beat. But she was a fairy realm fighter after all. Her adaptability was shocking. She was in the air, her hands grabbing toward the ghost face. The ghost face, which had been blocking the 2 golden swords, suddenly spun and appeared on her back. Suyu cursed inwardly. As expected, the killing move was extremely fast, not holding back at all in order to ensure its lethality. In the end, it collided with the ghost face and was deflected. Suyu's expression darkened, immediately controlling the other 2 golden swords. Without the ghost face to obstruct them, they shot toward her. However, due to the fact that they were quite far away, they were not as lethal as the third golden sword. Shang-Ji's eyes glowed with a cold light. She lifted her hand to grab the swords, her body moving to the side. One of the golden swords was caught in Shungu's hand, and the other golden sword was supposed to be aimed at her heart, but because her body was slightly off, it only brushed past her arm, leaving a bright red mark. Suyu had calculated. If it had been a normal vital energy crystal master, even if he did not die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. However, Shungu was very experienced. She was able to turn danger into safety every single time. Creak! The golden sword in Shang-Ji's hand flickered, escaping her control. Her expression turned cold. Even though she had dodged her opponent's attacks, she was still in a sorry state. In Shungu's memory, she hadn't been suppressed like this many times. But every time, she had met an opponent of a higher level. Only Suyu, a mere human king, was able to completely suppress her. Even though he was restricted by his cultivation level, his battle abilities were shocking. Those 3 semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts were troublesome to deal with. Have you fought enough? If you have, it's my turn now. Shang-Ji's expression was cold. She let out a cold grunt, her formless aura spreading. It was like a tsunami crashing in all directions, silently filling the air with dust. The 1,000-square-meter forest swayed, as if it was about to collapse. Xia Jingyu, who was in the middle of the terrifying aura, had no choice but to retreat. She looked at the scene in front of her in shock. Compared to the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds, Shang-Ji's abilities were obviously suppressed. However, her aura, which was at the brink of the fairy realm, was not something an ordinary half-fairy could compare to. Shang-Ji's hair fluttered in the wind, and her eyes were filled with a cold black light. Her entire body was surrounded by a ghostly aura, and ghosts could be vaguely seen. At that moment, a black beam of light shot out from Shang-Ji's left eye. Suyu's heart turned cold, and a great sense of danger welled up within him. Without hesitation, Suyu tilted his shoulder and moved 100 feet to the side. The black beam of light pierced through the void and brushed past Suyu. Boom! A loud sound that shook the heavens, and the earth suddenly erupted from the forest below. Looking down, thousands of square meters of forest had been razed to the ground by the black light pillar. A bottomless pit with a diameter of 5 miles appeared in front of him. That strike had pierced through the earth. Suyu's scalp turned slightly numb. If he had been hit just now, he would have vanished into thin air without a doubt. The power of this move was no weaker than when Lu Qi used the heavenly orchid silver bamboo. But just as Suyu was sighing, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. Without hesitation, the eternal stone king armor appeared on his body. At that moment, a black beam of light shot out from the bottomless pit. It was the beam of light shot out by Shangge. Suyu's heart trembled. He had barely brushed past it. Just as he was about to escape danger, all of a sudden, the black light pillar that had clearly brushed past Suyu turned around in a strange and agile manner. Its long tail swept towards Suyu. Suyu was caught off guard, and he was struck by the beam of light. In an instant, a huge force, like a raging wave, struck his body. Thump! Suyu's body took a few steps back. The armor on his body flickered, and a faint dent could be seen. The Eternal Stone King armor was an armor with shocking defensive capabilities, but it had actually been dented. It was because of this armor that Suyu had been spared. His blood had only been slightly disturbed. I want to see how long this armor of yours can last. Shangge shot Suyu a cold gaze, and the black beam of light shot toward him once again. Suyu dodged it repeatedly, brushing past it several times in a thrilling manner. After half a cup of tea's time, the ghost energy within the beam of light gradually dimmed. After a few failed attacks, the beam of light dimmed. Don't you still have the defensive treasure, the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation? Why didn't you take it out? Shang-Ji's eyes were filled with suspicion. In her memory, Suyu clearly had a blue pearl, and its defensive capabilities were no weaker than the broken Eternal Stone King armor. However, Suyu still hadn't taken it out, and she instinctively felt that something was amiss. You want to know? Suyu smiled. Shangge felt that something was wrong. At that moment, Xia Jingyu, who was watching the battle from afar, suddenly said, "All right, brother Yu, I've already retreated 10 miles away." Xia Jingyu, who had retreated continuously, had already retreated 10 miles, leaving only a black dot on the horizon. Suyu nodded. Then we can begin. Shangge felt that something was wrong. Her body turned blurry, and she teleported towards Xia Jingyu. A mere 10 miles could be crossed in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, she arrived in front of Xia Jingyu, less than 100 feet away. I'll capture you first. No matter what Suyu was plotting, since Xia Jingyu had retreated 100 feet away, it meant that Suyu cared about her. But with a thump, it was as if her body had collided with a soft ripple of water. Her teleporting body was forcefully bounced back. The huge rebound caused her throat to taste blood and her blood to boil. Not good. It's an ambush. Shunga felt that something was amiss. She lifted her head to look and saw a blue beam of light between her and Xia Jingyu. Ripples appeared on the light pillar, which was caused by her collision with it. The dry cloud, 5 elemental formations, orb. Shunga was shocked. Her expression changed, and she immediately flew out in another direction. But suddenly, the blue beam of light unfurled like a painting, forming a light screen that reached the heavens and spanned several miles. Shunga was alarmed. Without thinking, she immediately looked for another direction to break through. But there was a continuous whooshing sound in the sky, and light screens of different colors shot out from within a 10-mile radius. The 5 light screens combined into one, completely enveloping a 10-mile radius. The complete dry cloud, 5 elemental formation. Shang Ji's expression turned serious for the first time. 1 orb was nothing. 2 orbs were nothing. In fact, even 5 orbs were nothing. But if 5 orbs formed a formation, its power would not be as simple as 5 orbs stacked together. Instead, it would increase exponentially. She tried to soar into the sky, leaping into the 9 heavens. But the top of the light screen, formed by the 5 beams of light, was sealed, following which she shattered the ground with her palm. Her expression sank when she realized that the ground was also covered by a light screen. Chapter 529. When did you set up the formation? Shang Ji's expression was extremely ugly as she shouted in a low voice. Suyu had obviously been fighting with her the whole time. So, how could he have had the opportunity to set up a formation within a 10-mile radius? Such a grand setup would require some time. Suyu strode forward and said indifferently, "Of course it is when I see Shijie." Shijie's appearance made Suyu anticipate Shang Ji's arrival. At that time, he already had plans to subdue this heavenly ghost, so he spent a lot of effort to set up the dry cloud 5 elemental formation before helping Xia Jingyu. You can't do anything right, but you only know how to spoil things. Hearing this, Shunga could not help but feel resentful. She glared at Suyu ferociously. She finally believed that Suyu was extremely daring. She might really be defeated by him today. You want to trap me? Don't even think about it. Shunga snorted coldly. A black beam of light shot out from her left eye again, piercing through the light barrier. Under such a huge force, the light curtain trembled violently, and a shallow crack appeared on it. The formation had expanded to such a large extent that the light screen had been forcefully expanded, so its defensive power was naturally much weaker. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he weaved signs with his hands, causing the 5 light screens to shrink rapidly. Shunga was anxious. Whether they could escape or not depended on this moment. The black pillar of light whipped the 5-colored light barrier in a frenzy, trying to break it. But as the light curtain shrank rapidly, the effects of the beams of light became weaker and weaker. When there was only a kilometer left, the beam of light bombarded the surface, leaving behind ripples that continued to vibrate. It was hard to break through. Finally, the dry cloud 5 elemental formation contracted and trapped Shunga within a 30-feet radius. Seizing the opportunity, Suyu stepped out of the formation as if there was nothing there. He stood outside the formation and controlled it from afar. Shunga was infuriated. Black Snow Devil King, how dare you treat me like this? I will not forgive you. I'm afraid it's not up to you, Lord Shunga. Suyu's eyes flickered coldly as he clasped his palms together slowly. The 5-colored light pillar continued to shrink until it was only 5 feet away. Shunga was shocked and enraged at the same time. Ghost chi surged through her arms, strengthening the strength of her arms. She used her arms to forcibly hold the light screen and struggled desperately. Brat, do you really want to fight to the death? Are you going to be my sworn enemy? Shunga shouted. This scene was something that Xia Jingyu, who was watching from afar, could not imagine. Suyu had really beaten a heavenly ghost into submission. At that time, the two of them couldn't even breathe heavily in front of this heavenly ghost, but now they were able to suppress it to such an extent. In just a few short months, Suyu's strength had improved tremendously. I've said it before, my goal is to subdue you, Suyu said calmly, as he closed his fingers forcefully. How powerful was the dry cloud 5 elemental formation? Shungu groaned in pain as her arms bent unnaturally. She was about to be completely suppressed. At that time, she wouldn't even have a chance to resist. At this moment, Shang Ji's eyes flashed with determination. All right, kid, just you wait. If you have the guts, don't ever come back to the Jinlong continent. Slurp. Suddenly, Ghost Chi surged from the top of his head. A little girl about 5 years old walked out from the Ghost Chi. She was as cute as a porcelain doll and was exceptionally exquisite. At this moment, the little girl's eyes were wide open, and she was staring at Suyu angrily. Once she appeared, her cultivation of the fairy realm could no longer be concealed. In the heavenly mystery palace, spatial ripples instantly descended, ignoring the dry cloud 5 elemental formation and enveloping her. She was heading to the place where she had been transported back, the Jinlong continent. At that place, a fairy realm like her would no longer be affected. If Suyu returned, he would not be facing a half-fairy, but a true fairy realm. Kid, I'll wait for you at the Jinlong continent, Shungu said, clenching her teeth. She had finally reached the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion, and was only a step away from returning to Jiuzhou. Who could have expected that she would be forced back by a human king-level kid? Suyu's eyes glowed. Good. I'll wait for your real body to appear. Creak. Suddenly, a large expanse of golden light flashed in his sleeve. It was a golden ring that was 5 feet in size. Unfamiliar Sanskrit words were carved on the ring, and it gave off a dazzling Buddhist glow. Around the golden ring, illusory Buddhist qualities gradually appeared. They chanted softly, using Buddhist language that could cause one's heart to become tranquil. But when the Buddhist language was heard by the ghosts, it was as if their intestines were being pierced by poison. The moment it appeared, Shang Ji's expression changed. The Buddhist treasure, the ghost-suppressing golden ring? No. With a furious roar, she forcefully suppressed the crazily churning ghost energy in her body, charging toward the outside of the formation. But it was all to no avail. At the last moment, Suyu did not hold back any longer. He crazily channeled his spirit energy into the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. At that moment, the dry cloud 5 elemental formation shrank. Shungu was caught in the middle, unable to move her limbs. Seizing the opportunity, the ghost-suppressing golden ring enveloped her neck, following which the golden ring shrank from the size of the class monitor to the size of a fist, locking her neck firmly. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The large amount of ghost fog in her body was released from her body like a startled fish. Ah! Shungu let out a loud cry, her petite body enduring a great deal of pain. She had a resolute expression. It's still too early to capture me. With a light grunt, a white light shot out from Shang Ji's right eye. The white light was extremely intense. Compared to the black beam of light shot out from her left eye, this white light was extremely strange. It contained an abnormally powerful Buddhist energy. A Buddhist energy that could restrain ghosts appeared in the body of a ghost. Such a preposterous scene stunned Suyu. But the strength of the Buddhist energy was many times that of the ghost suppressing golden ring. A large opening appeared in the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. Suyu was shocked. In terms of power, the power of the white beam of light was more than 10 times that of the black beam of light. But this attack had used up all of Shang Ji's vital energy. Her body wobbled as she escaped from the opening. At that moment, a thick Buddhist aura circulated around her body. The ghost-suppressing golden ring, a treasure of the Buddhist path, seemed to have a mind of its own, relaxing on its own. Seizing the opportunity, Shungu escaped from the ghost-suppressing golden ring. She had lost all of her vital energy, as well as most of her ghost energy. Her abilities were greatly reduced. If she were to do it again, she would most likely be subdued. But at that moment, the ripples of space in the mysterious, heavenly divine pavilion enveloped her, transporting her away. Before leaving, Shang Ji's face was filled with coldness, and she glared at Suyu. She clenched her teeth and spat out the words, "Black Snow, Devil King." I will make you regret this. But Suyu was not worried. Instead, he let out a leisurely laugh. Do you think you can go back? So what if you break through the limits of the fairy realm? If I ask you to stay, you have to stay. Creak. The sound of a cloth being unfurled could be heard. It was an extremely complicated map. After it unfurled in the air, it spun above Shang-Ji's head. Chapter 530. She stopped the teleportation. Shang-Ge was shocked. Mysterious heavenly map. How could you have a mysterious heavenly map? Impossible. But she had no time to think. How could she, in her weakened state, fight against the dry cloud 5 elemental formation and the ghost-suppressing golden ring? Her petite figure flickered as she quickly flew into the distance, trying to escape the area covered by the map. That way, the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion could sense her presence at the fairy realm and teleport her out. Seeing this, Suyu grabbed the dry cloud 5 elemental formation and the ghost-suppressing golden ring, then gave chase. He had expended so much effort. How could he let her escape? Taking advantage of her weakened state was the best time to subdue her. Once she escaped back to the Jinlong continent and displayed the abilities of the fairy realm, it would be too difficult to subdue her. Xia Jingyu came back to her senses from the ups and downs of the battle. Her heart was filled with shock, respect, and an indescribable pride as she quickly chased after him. Shang-Ge sprinted in front, but because she was too weak, her movement techniques were not as good as they had been at their peak. Her speed was very slow, and she could not shake off Suyu or the influence of the map. Thus, the three of them engaged in a jaw-dropping chase in the sky above the 5 peaks. A fairy realm was being chased by a human king. What they did not know was that after they left, the bottomless pit that Shang-Ge had blasted open was filled with black blood, giving off a thick stench. After half a cup of tea's time, Shang-Ge had used up all of her vital energy. She had no choice but to land on the last peak, the one in the middle of the 5 peaks. She had gone to the legacy of crafting equipment, elixirs, and perception. Only the most important legacy of materials and a legacy of cultivation techniques remained. This peak was quiet, and it did not seem like a place where people gathered. It was most likely a legacy of cultivation techniques. Suyu locked on a Shang-Ge. Finally, she landed on this peak, barging into a graveyard. Many decaying tombstones had been thrown to the side of the road. Some had been trampled and destroyed, while others were half buried in the ground. The tombstones had been flipped open, and the corpses were scattered everywhere. From the traces, it seemed like they had been destroyed a long time ago. These were the tombs of Tianji's disciples and their descendants. In the deepest part of the unmarked burial mound, there were 3 gigantic and ancient tombs. These were the tombs of Tianji's 3 disciples. However, the tomb door was wide open and extremely dilapidated. It should be empty inside. What a creepy place. I'm afraid Shang-Ge will use this place to nourish her body and recover from her injuries. Xia Jingyu was worried. As a graveyard, the ghost chi here was dense, and it was most suitable for ghosts like Shang-Ge. But the 3 tombs seem to be very deep. If we accidentally enter one of them, Shang-Ge might take the opportunity to escape. Suyu laughed indifferently. She can't escape today. With a flash of his eyes, the topography of the 3 ancient tombs appeared in Suyu's eyes. However, all 3 tombs were empty. Shang-Ge was nowhere to be found. Oh, Suyu had a faint smile on his face. He swept his gaze across the dilapidated, ordinary tombs. Shang-Ge was curled up at the bottom of one of the tombs that looked like it had been overturned. She was smart. Even Xia Jingyu had subconsciously thought that she had escaped into the tombs. In the end, she had done the exact opposite, hiding in an ordinary tomb. If not for Suyu's transparent eyes, he would have fallen for a trap as well. Without waiting for Suyu to attack, the alert Shang-Ge realized that she had been exposed. She broke open the tomb without hesitation, using the little ghost energy she had absorbed to forcefully soar into the sky. Suyu smiled. With a tap of his toes, he spun and charged into the sky, chasing after her. However, the moment his toes touched the ground, Suyu felt a numbness coming from his lower body. A weak electric current that could not be detected flashed past. Sensing this abnormality, Suyu could not help but look at the ground in shock. As if he had discovered something, his transparent eyes shrank. This is deep underground. There was an aura that caused him to tremble. It was in deep sleep. The lightning in his body seemed to be uncontrollable, showing signs of leaving his body. Within his space ring, the prototype fairy artifact, the 5-elemental strong thunder seal, was raring to go. So you could not help but be shocked. What kind of terrifying existence was hidden beneath this tomb? Suyu calmly retracted his gaze, not daring to disturb the creature. Based on his intuition, that terrifying creature could destroy him 10 times in an instant. Apart from divine masters, Suyu did not think that there was any living creature in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion that could fight against this terrifying sleeping creature. Carefully flying away from the area, Suyu took a deep look at the tomb. Speaking of which, it was strange. Since this was the tomb of the descendants of the Protectors, there was no reason for the Protectors to sit back and watch as their ancestors' tombs were dug up by someone else. Could it be that they had hidden troubles? Remembering this place, Suyu and Xia Jingyu once again locked onto Shengge, beginning their pursuit. In less than 10 breaths, Sheng Ji's face was pale, and she was exhausted. Clenching her teeth, she glided to the top of the last peak. This peak was the shortest of the 5 peaks, but it was also the thickest. It was twice as thick as an ordinary mountain. This was the most important peak of the 5 peaks, and it contained the strongest legacy, the legacy of materials. It was said that all of Jojo's materials could be found there. In fact, there were 2 extremely terrifying materials that had been suppressed there for years. Unlike the other peaks, the other 4 legacies each had a team of protectors guarding them. But this peak was the main camp of the protectors, and their main forces were all stationed here. Because of the protectors, no outsider had ever gotten close to it. But one thing was for sure. Even the protectors had not opened the seal in the deepest part of the legacy. The lightning-avoiding silver pearl that Suyu had been searching for was within this legacy. After Shengge descended, she immediately leapt into the fog, her figure disappearing. Suyu's gaze was like a torch. No matter how Shengge moved, she could not escape Suyu's gaze. A moment later, even Suyu did not know where they had chased her. He only knew that there were petrified statues of different sizes nearby. They stood within the fog, like ghostly shadows. They overlapped one another, looking extremely eerie. As for the escaping Shengge, she suddenly stopped moving after entering the petrified statue. Suyu raised his brows. What had happened? With a thought, Suyu's figure came to an abrupt stop, blocking Xia Jingyu as well. Forming a seal with one hand, the scarlet clone stepped forward. Suyu's first few steps seemed normal, but after he had taken 9 steps, his pupils contracted as he discovered that numerous worms were crawling out of the ground soundlessly, and they were silently spitting out a gray fog. The fog swirled and enveloped the clone. At that moment, cracking sounds could be heard as a layer of stone skin appeared on the surface of the clone's body. A moment later, the clone had been completely petrified, becoming one of the surrounding stone statues. These stone statues are not stone statues. They are intruders. A thought flashed past Suyu's mind. He grabbed Xia Jingyu and flew into the sky. Chapter 531. As he flew into the sky, Suyu discovered Sheng Ji's figure through the dense fog. She had also become a stone statue. Her face was still filled with surprise and panic as she turned to leave the strange forest of stone statues. But unexpectedly, she was unable to escape, becoming one of the countless stone statues. Suyu was shocked. It was true that Sheng Ji's abilities had decreased greatly, but it was also true that she had the body of the fairy realm. The gray fog that the bug spat out could even turn her into stone. It was clear how dangerous it was to be turned into stone. Luckily, Suyu was cautious. The bugs were attracted by the clone and did not notice them. However, before he left, Suyu raised his hand and grabbed Sheng Ji's stone statue in the air. Looking at the shocked and panicked expression of the petrified statue, Suyu could not help but shake his head. Why did you have to do this? If you had listened to me earlier, you would not be in such a state. After saying this, he threw the statue into the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Shungu had been subdued. All he had to do now was find a way to remove her petrification. After safely exiting the forest of stone statues, Su Yu and Xia Jingyu realized how vast the forest was. They had only entered from a small corner. The real forest of stone statues was endless. Oh, there are still people who dare to enter the forest of stone statues. They really do not know their place. A soft voice came from the clouds far away. 3 blurry figures had noticed the commotion and rushed over, just in time to see Su Yu and Xia Jingyu leave the forest. Su Yu and Xia Jingyu were on guard, looking over. Bringing with them a cloud of fog, 2 elegant young men in white robes with blades on their backs stepped out. One was in front, and the other was behind. The latter was younger, dressed neatly, had a dignified appearance, and had a powerful aura. His abilities had reached the level of a half-fairy with 1 vital energy crystal, and his abilities were unusually strong. The former was handsome and glowing, his face brimming with confidence. His starry eyes shone with a light that mesmerized young girls. His abilities had reached the level of a half-fairy with 2 vital energy crystals. His appearance, abilities, and aura were all on him. He was indeed a handsome man that young girls could not resist. As Su Yu and Xia Jingyu examined them, they also examined Su Yu. Su Yu's silver hair caused the 2 of them to be slightly surprised. However, when they realized that he was a human king, they lost interest. When their gazes passed by Su Yu and fell on Xia Jingyu, both of them were stunned by her beauty. They became absent-minded as they stared at Xia Jingyu's breathtakingly beautiful face without even blinking. Xia Jingyu frowned slightly. She was a little annoyed by this kind of gaze. When she was still a student of the Xinyu Prefecture Training Institute, she could not stand this kind of gaze. After entering the Zhenlong continent and hiding his true face, he felt at ease for many years. In a moment of carelessness, he forgot to disguise his face again, attracting an irritating gaze. With a thought, water vapor filled the air, concealing his face once more. When the corner of her eyes swept over the quiet and calm figure in front of her, the irritation in her heart suddenly calmed down, just like when she used to stay by his side, making her especially enjoy the peace. With their faces covered, the 2 elegant young masters frowned for no reason, as if someone had disturbed their mood of enjoying the beautiful scenery. However, sensing that they had lost their composure, they quickly concealed their displeasure. "I am Zheng Zhijing, an outer sanctum disciple of Yufeng's sanctum. May I know your name? Why have I not seen you at the mysterious heavenly stage?" Zheng Zhijing's eyes were only on Xia Jingyu, not Su Yu. It was not that he was arrogant, but to a half-fairy like him, a human king like Su Yu did not have many opportunities to speak with him. Xia Jingyu did not speak, quietly retreating behind Su Yu, like the Ling family's little sister, allowing Su Yu to protect her. Seeing this, Zheng Zhijing was a little displeased. He then examined Su Yu, who was in front of him. When he realized that Su Yu's appearance and demeanor were not ordinary, he was unhappy, secretly guessing the relationship between him and Xia Jingyu. Sensing the indistinct hostility, Su Yu laughed bitterly. He could not remember how many times he had gotten himself into trouble because of Xia Jingyu. What was depressing was that there was no other relationship between them. They were just friends. However, this Zheng Zhijing in front of him clearly had his eyes on Xia Jingyu. Su Yu naturally had no reason to stand by and watch. "Is there anything? If there is nothing else, I will take my leave." Su Yu extended his hand and grabbed Xia Jingyu's wrist, pulling her to leave. "Wait, how can you say that? Do you know who is standing in front of you?" The white-robed man, who was slightly further back, coldly shouted. Su Yu glanced at him indifferently. "Yufeng faction, Zheng Zhijing. Didn't he already say that? Are you deaf? Or did I hear wrongly?" This white-robed man was clearly trying to curry favor with Zheng Zhijing, hence his fierce words. Being rebutted by Su Yu, the white-robed man's brows inadvertently revealed a murderous aura. "I really do not know if you're pretending to be stupid, or if you're really stupid. Even if you're a wandering martial artist, You should understand that outer sanctum disciples like us are incomparable to wandering martial artists like you. Even if I put crudely, I still think highly of you. To talk back to me, you are truly ignorant and fearless. So you cannot be bothered to argue with this kind of disciple. He was merely a disciple who had been pampered in the faction for a long time, and was used to being flattered by wandering martial artists. Lifting his feet, Su Yu prepared to leave. Stop right there. The white-robed man was clearly enraged. Su Yu's dismissive attitude made him feel a little annoyed. How many wandering martial artists would dare to be so arrogant in front of him? If you want to fight, please hurry up. Don't talk nonsense anymore. It will only make people feel like you are noisy. Su Yu's expression turned cold. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on this kind of arrogant person. The white-robed man was stunned. He could not help but laugh out of anger. This was the first time he had encountered such an arrogant, wandering martial artist. He glanced at Zhang Zhijing from the corner of his eyes. Zhang Zhijing's expression was calm, without any reaction. The white-robed youth understood tacitly, and a fierce look flashed across his face. Reckless fool, I'll teach you a lesson. Huh? The white-robed man's vital energy surged, gathering in his fists as he punched towards Su Yu's face. This punch did not have much leeway to hold back. Su Yu's gaze turned cold. Xia Jingyu, who was behind him, said gently, Brother Yu, you have fought a great battle. Rest first. Let me handle this. As she spoke, a black light flashed in her palm. A feather needle of darkness appeared in her palm. She imbued some spirit energy into it, causing it to shine with a black light. Xia Jingyu weaved signs with one hand. The water-based cultivation technique in her body was strengthened by more than 5 times. With a whistling sound, a Tinjong thick water dragon drilled out of the ground. It roared as it charged toward the white-robed man to block the punch. The power of the punch, which was wrapped in vital energy, was naturally powerful. However, the water dragon, which was formed by water, was shattered after a short moment. But the white-robed man himself was forced back a few steps. There were some faint green marks on his fist. It seemed like he had been injured. Suppressing his anger, the white-robed man took out a saber-shaped treasure. It was a high-grade divine artifact, and it emitted a sharp blade. However, just as the treasure was taken out, 9 water dragons appeared, each more than twice as strong as the previous one. The white-robed man, whose face was filled with anger, was shocked. What was going on? Why had his abilities increased so much in such a short time? Moreover, this was definitely not a battle power that a human king could unleash. In his shock, the white-robed man hurriedly slashed with his saber. Saber energy crisscrossed. After a few consecutive slashes, he finally shattered a few of the water dragons. However, the next 3 dragons charged forward like a torrent. Puff, puff, puff. After suffering 3 consecutive attacks, the saber in his hand flew out of his hand. The blood in his body surged, and he spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Bright red blood covered half of his face, making him look miserable and wretched. Xia Jingyu waved her hand, retrieving the water dragons. She calmly said, You are not even comparable to me. How dare you challenge Brother Yu? In her heart, Brother Su, you had always been so powerful that people would lose the will to surpass him. He had been, was, and would always be. Chapter 532. The white-robed figure flew backward. His chest was in pain, and his eyes were burning with anger. He was not even as good as a loose cultivator. From his tone, it seemed like the silver-haired kid was even more powerful than the beautiful lady. At that moment, a force enveloped him and stabilized him. Zhang Zhijing's calm expression was replaced by a gloomy expression. Lady, what do you mean by injuring my Yufeng sect's disciple? If you don't give me an explanation, the 2 of you can forget about leaving for now. He secretly sized up Xia Jingyu, as if he wanted to admire the fairy-like figure under the mist. He also secretly sized up the feather needle of darkness in her hand. The power of forcefully increasing one's ability was not to be underestimated. His junior brother was one of the top 10 outer sect disciples of the Yufeng sect, but it was rare for him to be defeated by a human king. The reason was that the semi-manufactured spiritual artifact, the feather needle of darkness, was a great treasure. Aren't you going to be reasonable? When he attacked just now, you didn't stop him. You were weaker than him and got injured by me, yet you blame me for not showing mercy, Xia Jingyu replied fearlessly. Zhang Zhijing squinted his eyes. Lady, I'm afraid you can't explain yourself for injuring my Yufeng's sex disciple. He wanted both the person and the money. A fairy-like beauty and a rare, semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. How could he miss such a great opportunity? I understand what you mean. Make your move. Xia Jingyu's eyes were calm, and her expression was as calm as dust. Zhang Zhijing snorted. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think that you can deal with me just by relying on a semi-manufactured spiritual weapon? Wind shadow, transformation. Zhang Zhijing shouted, and a pair of green wings spread out from his back, making him look like a green bird. At the same time, his figure became blurry and disappeared. Xia Jingyu's eyes did not waver. She waved her sleeves, and the water vapor within a 3-mile radius suddenly became dense, forming a layer of faint white mist. To Xia Jingyu's right, the mist was moving rapidly, as if something was flying over at an extremely fast speed, revealing its traces in the mist. Cloud prison. Xia Jingyu clenched her fist tightly, and a large patch of mist seemed to gather, pressing towards the center and sealing the green figure that had revealed its traces. The green shadow had no choice but to change its direction. It rushed out of the encirclement and hovered in the air. Zhang Zhijing's figure appeared, and his face was filled with killing intent. His water element abilities were very troublesome to deal with, and he didn't even have the chance to sneak up on him. Wind shadow, second transformation. It's over. Zhang Zhijing let out a light snort, and the true energy in his body surged. Above his head, a giant green bird of 30 meters in size appeared. It was vivid and lifelike, and did not look like an illusion. As Zhang Zhijing pointed from afar, the giant cyan bird streaked across the sky and swooped down. The cloud cage was torn apart by the sharp claws of the giant cyan bird. Its body, which was 100 feet long, pierced through the clouds and grabbed at Xia Jingyu. Xia Jingyu's face was calm. She waved her hand again, and a longbow condensed from water vapor appeared in her palm. The water mist in the sky rapidly shrank, turning into an extremely compressed arrow of water. Due to the excessive compression, the water pressure was so strong that it made people shudder. Whoosh! Xia Jingyu didn't even think about it and casually shot it out. Pa! The compressed arrow left an afterimage in the air as it collided with the giant cyan bird. At the moment of contact, the compressed arrow shattered, releasing a powerful wave of water pressure. The giant green bird was shattered by the splashing water pressure on the spot and vanished in a thin air. A portion of the remaining water pressure shot toward Zhang Zhijing. His expression turned serious as he retreated, looking at Xia Jingyu with a fearful gaze. This woman was not as simple as he had imagined, relying on a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. That attack, just now, was a top-class, immortal-level technique. Zhang Zhijing's gaze flickered, his expression turning cold. Very well, I'll remember all of you. See you at the Divine Sparrow stage. After saying this, he didn't even care about his junior, turning to escape into the dense fog. The white-robed junior's heart skipped a beat, and he fled into the dense fog. But with a flick of Xia Jingyu's slender fingers, 2 chains formed from water wrapped around him, following which Xia Jingyu's 10 fingers rotated, forming a water seal that struck into his mind. This was a water channel seal, similar to Su Yu's Great Thunderheart technique. It could control the life and death of the enemy. Xia Jingyu had only exchanged blows with the 2 of them for a few dozen breaths, but she had already displayed more than 5 different cultivation techniques. And these 5 techniques were just the tip of the iceberg of her water channels. Coupled with the feather needle of darkness, which could strengthen her water channels to the limits of half fairy, so you could not help but click his tongue. If Xia Jingyu were to fight him seriously, the outcome might not be certain. Brother Yu, I'll leave him to you. How do you want to deal with him? Xia Jingyu returned to Su Yu's side, smiling. Her otherworldly fairy aura was tinged with the bashfulness of a young girl. Su Yu looked at the white-robed youth, calmly saying, "Do you know the origins of the stone statue forest? What kind of place is the divine sparrow stage?" Su Yu's eyes glowed when he mentioned the divine sparrow stage. His heart was filled with humiliation, but now that he had been sealed, his life and death were beyond his control. He could only answer unwillingly. The stone statue forest is a protective spell formation before the legacy of materials. There are many insects reared by the guardians, and the petrifying energy they emit can turn all living things into stone. To enter the land of the legacy of materials, one can only walk through the spell. But since ancient times, other than the genius female demon from the previous batch who successfully passed through the spell, all those who barged into the spell were turned into stone statues. As for the divine sparrow stage, it was a resting place that was dug out by the predecessors who had entered the legacy of materials. Later on, it became the gathering place for us disciples who were training. Disciples from all over the world who had entered the 8th level of the divine pavilion would gather there. There is such a place? Su Yu nodded. He remembered that Yuchan had once told him that the disciples of Heavenly Arcanum Palace would gather together to carry out a small-scale trade activity after the trial ended. The location of this event was a place called the Divine Sparrow Stage. He did not know if it was in the same area. Su Yu hoped to exchange for a shred of the blood of a real dragon there. Then do you know if there is a way to save yourself if you are accidentally turned into stone by the insects in the spell formation? Su Yu asked. The white-robed youth shook his head. We outsiders have no way. Only the special spiritual liquid secreted by the mother insects reared by the guardians can dissolve the petrification by smearing it on the stone statues. But the guardians want to kill all of us outsiders, so they would not give us the spiritual liquid. Other than the spiritual liquid, there is no other way, unless we ask a divine master to help us. Guardians? Su Yu felt that the situation was troublesome. If that was the case, it would be troublesome for Shanggu to recover. All right, I understand. Su Yu nodded. The white-robed youth's heart was thumping wildly. What do you plan to do to me? It was obvious that Su Yu had no reason to let him go. Help me do something. Su Yu's eyes flashed with a mysterious glow. Chapter 533. After some time, Su Yu sent the white-clothed youth off, muttering softly, I hope I do not need it. Xia Jingyu was confused. She only saw Su Yu instructing the white-clothed youth several times, then handing him a multicolored object. After that, the white-clothed youth's expression turned cold as he left. Although she was curious, she did not ask, saying gently, Let's find a place to rest. I will help you comprehend and achieve a breakthrough. Su Yu nodded, choosing a secluded place to recuperate with her. Both of them had expended quite a bit of their energy. As Su Yu was recuperating, his arm glowed with a jade green light. A shred of his soul entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Aoyue greets master. Wu Aoyue greeted respectfully the moment they entered. Su Yu looked her up and down. Although this woman had a respectful expression on her face, he could faintly sense some killing intent and hatred in her. Well, who would be willing to be enslaved by others? How is the ravine? Su Yu asked expressionlessly. Wu Aoyue pointed to a green mountain. I have followed master's instructions and built a thatched hut at the foot of the green mountain. You can rest and train there. The nursery has also been moved to the side of the thatched hut. Su Yu's heart shook, and he brought Wu Aoyue with him as he headed over in an instant. The thatched hut was simple and quiet. It was elegant and peaceful, extremely pleasant. At the side of the thatched hut was a nursery with 100 grains of supreme growing soil. A snow-white little tree was growing healthily in the nursery. It was the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate that he had discovered previously. The fruits it bore could purify spirit energy. Su Yu had tried it before, and the effect were not bad. The only pity was that it would only be effective when eaten for the first time. The current incredible feather spiritual pomegranate tree was 3 times taller than when it was first transplanted. It was as tall as 2 people, its branches and leaves lush. Amidst the greenery, There were 3 golden fruits, glistening with a golden glow. It is growing so quickly. So you clicked his tongue. The more spiritual the object, the slower its growth. The incredible feather spiritual pomegranate tree before him was transplanted was 60 years older than before. Hence, it had grown 3 fruits not long after it was plucked. The supreme growing soil is known as the #1 divine soil. It has a mysterious ability that is hard for outsiders to fathom, especially in the aspect of accelerating ripening. It could be said to be a miracle. Wu Aoyue secretly looked at the 3 fruits, her eyes flashing with a deep desire. This kind of fruit, when she was in the sect, was not something an outer sect disciple like her could covet. These were the exclusive enjoyment of inner sect disciples. Outer sect disciples needed 3 years of hard work to get one from the sect through meritorious deeds. Currently, her cultivation was stuck at the pinnacle of the demigod stage. Because her spiritual energy was not pure enough, she was unable to convert it into vital energy. If he could swallow a profound feather spiritual pomegranate, he would be able to raise the spiritual energy within the 3 spiritual crystals to the purest state and transform it into true energy. Becoming a half immortal would be a matter of time. It was a pity that if Su Yu were to sell such a precious fruit, he would surely earn a bountiful profit. As a slave, everything belonged to Su Yu, and he had no bargaining chips to exchange for it. Well done. Su Yu flashed a faint smile and waved his sleeves. A gust of wind blew past and cut down the 3 fruits, which then fell into 3 jade boxes. Wu Aoyue sneered in her heart when she heard this. Whoosh! A green light was suddenly thrown over. Wu Aoyue grabbed it subconsciously. Looking at it, she saw that it was a jade box that sealed the profound feather spiritual pomegranate. She froze, looking at Su Yu in confusion. She saw that Su Yu was stuffing the other 2 jade boxes into his robes, calmly saying, "You deserve it. Take it." Wu Aoyue's pupils gradually dilated, becoming absent-minded. "Really?" Su Yu glanced sideways and laughed apathetically. "I know that you are not satisfied. However, since you have seen the supreme growing soil, before I have absolute abilities, I cannot let you out in case you bring trouble to me. During this period of time, you can stay here with peace of mind and help me take care of the valley. As long as you do your best, you will receive many benefits." Knowing that it was indeed impossible for her to leave, her mood dropped. But feeling the coldness of the jade box in her palm, she felt a tinge of relief in her heart. Even though she was forcefully enslaved, the silver lining in her misfortune was that Su Yu's character was impeccable. That day, he could have violated her, but he forcefully endured it. Now, he was fair with his rewards and punishments, treating her well. With a struggle in her eyes, she secretly sighed. The resentment in her heart weakened greatly, and she could not help but accept her fate. "Thank you, Master, for your reward. From today onwards, I will listen to Master's instructions." Wu Aoyue bowed respectfully, completely accepting her identity as a slave. Nodding his head, Su Yu said, "How did you deal with the items that I received during this period of time?" Hearing what was said, Wu Aoyue pushed open the door of the thatched hut. She had specially made a row of neatly arranged cupboards in the hut. Within the cupboards, there were neatly arranged rows of divine artifacts, all of which were obtained after killing enemies recently. In the biggest cupboard, Su Yu saw the petrified Shangge. Hee, to think that you would have such a day. A symbol that was a combination of thunderbolt and soul flew out from between Su Yu's brows, entering the space between Shang-Ji's brows with a whooshing sound. But the moment it entered, it was forcefully pushed out. As expected, even though Shang-Ji's body was petrified, her soul was still present, resisting forcefully. Su Yu smiled. "I'm giving you a chance. Do you want to become a stone statue forever, or do you want to become my servant? If you choose the former, I will grant you your wish and seal you here for eternity. If you choose the latter, as your master, I will naturally find a way to dissolve the petrifying power within my body." Pausing for a moment, Su Yu calmly said, "This is on account of the fact that you did not harm me when you enslaved me in the past. If not, you would not have lived until now. I will only give you one chance. Su Yu's expression became calm, filled with shreds of coldness. Wu Aoyue, who was at the side, trembled slightly. She suddenly felt the murderous aura emanating from Su Yu's body. Her heart was filled with shock. The stone statue that had fallen and was actually alive? Moreover, from Su Yu's words, she had once enslaved Su Yu. Now, she was facing the fate of being enslaved by Su Yu. Who was this petrified little girl? Su Yu flicked his finger, and a restriction symbol once again shot into the space between Shang Ji's brows. The symbol struggled in the space between her brows. Only half of it had entered, but it was unable to enter further. This was a sign that Shang was having an intense internal struggle. When Su Yu's eyes flashed with murderous intent, Shang gave up resisting, and the restriction entered her soul. From that moment onwards, Su Yu could decide the life and death of Shang Ji's soul with just a thought. Having finally subdued Shang Su Yu's expression relaxed. Stay here peacefully for a period of time. I will let you recover your original body. After saying this, Su Yu strolled out of the thatched hut. After pondering for some time, he raised his hand and gestured. At once, the earth moved. The soil under the ground rumbled, and something rose. Wu Aoyue observed cautiously. After that, her pupils shrank abruptly. She could see that a large nursery of the supreme growing soil had appeared from the ground. The size of the nursery was 100 times larger than the nursery of the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate. Chapter 534. It was covered in lightning and looked extraordinary. Wu Aoyue was stunned. What is this? But after staring at it for a moment, she gradually reacted and gasped. Could this be the thunder herb? Hiss. The thunder herb takes 10 years to mature and is only 1 foot tall. It is said that some of the older ones are 3 feet tall, which means they are at least 30 years old. But they are not found in the outside world. Once the thunder herb matures, it will be discovered by spiritual beasts and eaten. It is rare to find 2 feet tall that is 20 years old in the market and can be sold for a high price. These are actually 3 meters long. That's 3 times longer than the longest record of 3 feet. Wu Aoyue's expression changed. She was shocked beyond words. As expected of the supreme growing soil. Not to mention the fact that the seeds of the thunder herb have never been grown by humans. Just its ability to accelerate its maturation in a short period of time is heaven-defying. If these 10 feet long thunder herbs were to be released, it would be unbelievable. The armor made from the thunder herb could effectively defend against the lightning disaster. To Su Yu, it was something he urgently needed. With a thought, 3 plucked thunder herbs appeared in the space. One of them was 1 foot long, while the other 2 were seedlings. After a slight comparison, Su Yu realized that the thunderbolt energy of the 1 foot long thunder herb was 10 times weaker than that of the 10 foot long thunder herb. Moreover, the 1 zhang long thunder herb was even more durable, like a colorless colored jade. In comparison, the 1 foot long thunder herb was dull and dull. Master's thunder herb is at least 100 years old. Its effect is 9 times that of a 10-year-old one. 1 thunder herb is equivalent to 9 thunder herbs. Wu Aoyue exclaimed. Su Yu had a satisfied expression. The supreme growing soil had given him a huge surprise. Yes, take good care of it. When you make a breakthrough to the fairy realm in the future, I can lend it to you, Su Yu said. Hearing this, Wu Aoyue's cold expression could not help but reveal a look of surprise. Really? Just as the words left her mouth, Wu Aoyue's face turned red and she shut her mouth. She could not help but blame herself. You are useless, losing your composure with just a little benefit. Even though she thought that, she could not hide the joy in her heart. The heavenly disaster was like a knife that hung above the head of every person who was about to break through to the fairy realm. Many people had failed under the heavenly disaster because they lacked a strong defense, and some had even been killed on the spot. As an outer sect disciple, and an outer sect disciple who didn't have much to rely on, how difficult would it be to obtain complete protection? However, the thunder herb that Su Yu had promised had completely dispelled his worries. How could she not be happy? Su Yu smiled. It was obvious that the armor made from the thundergrass would not be used just once. So, what harm was there in letting her try it? Do you know how to weave it into armor? Suyu asked. Wu Aoyue was very excited in her heart. She took a deep breath and suppressed her excitement. She said calmly, I made preparations in the Moon Radiant's clear voyage. I read a lot of information about the Thunder Herb. There shouldn't be a problem. Okay, then I will leave the task of making the armor to you. Suyu thought for a moment. Yes, master. I promise to complete the mission as soon as possible. Wu Aoyue was unable to calm her excitement. She made a grabbing motion with her jade-like fingers, and a jade sword appeared in her hand. She harvested the 10 thunder herbs, keeping 9 of them, and offered the other one with both hands. 9 are enough. Suyu nodded, keeping the herb in his robes. Then he waved his hand, dividing the entire nursery into 100 pieces of varying sizes. One piece was planted with the incredible feather, spiritual pomegranate, the other with the thunder herb, and the rest were mostly empty. Suddenly, Suyu raised his brows. I almost forgot about this. Suyu's heart moved, and 2 golden seeds appeared in his palm. They were the seeds of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo. He had gotten them from Lu Chuyi, and they were very precious. However, to germinate these seeds, they needed all creation's old monsters to spend 100 years, using their blood to water them day after day. Apart from that, it was almost impossible for them to survive. But for Suyu, who possessed the supreme growing soil, that might not be the case. The seeds of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo. Did I get the wrong person, master? Wu Aoyue sucked in a mouthful of cold air, and the jade sword in her hand fell to the ground with a clatter. Suyu was slightly surprised. Oh, you seem to know quite a lot. For her to recognize the seeds of the extinct heavenly orchid silver bamboo, it was obvious that she was very knowledgeable. Even though Lu Chuyi had taught her for a period of time, it was obvious that Lu Chuyi had not shown it to her. I serve in the faction's treasure house for a period of time, so I had the opportunity to read some books, and I know a thing or two about Juzhou. Wu Aoyue was secretly pleased, and she felt a little relieved. This powerful master also had a side that was inferior to her. Humph! Suyu flicked his finger, burying the 2 seeds in the supreme growing soil. After waiting for a moment, there were no changes to the seeds. Back then, the thunder herb had germinated the moment it was planted. He waited patiently for another hour, but there were still no changes. Suyu could not help but wonder if the seeds were dead seeds. Master, leave it to me. I will take good care of it. Once it germinates, I will inform you immediately. Wu Aoyue's face was full of anticipation. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo was the #1 divine bamboo in Juzhou. Even if Suyu rewarded her with 1 or 2 leaves in the future, it would be an unimaginable gain. So you could only do this. He could not stay here for too long. However, before leaving, Suyu had a thought and entered the other half of the valley. This was the interior of the valley, and Wu Aoyue did not have the authority to enter. When he appeared, he saw 2 figures sitting cross-legged under a large tree. It was Long Wuxin, who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, and Qin Xiener. What surprised Suyu was that both of them were forming vital energy crystals at the crucial moment of their cultivation. This surprised Suyu greatly. Suyu did not find Long Wuxin strange. Before this, she was already a top-notch half-god, and forming vital energy was only a matter of time. But before Xiener entered the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, she was only a heaven master. In one night, she had actually caught up to Long Wuxin and formed vital energy crystals together. What kind of opportunity did this last find for her cultivation level to improve by leaps and bounds? It was unbelievable. But thinking about her constitution, which was the Phoenix of Death constitution that even Yun Yazi had wanted to take as a disciple, it was not unacceptable that her cultivation level was so strange. Looking deeply at Xiener's cute figure, Suyu was satisfied, and his soul returned to his body. He had just opened his eyes when he saw a pair of tender eyes. Xia Jingyu had long since woken up. Seeing that Suyu was still in seclusion, she could not help but look at his face, observing every detail. She had a silly smile on her face. Suddenly, Suyu's eyeballs moved, a sign that he was about to wake up. Xia Jingyu was so shocked that her heart jumped, and she turned her face away hurriedly. Chapter 535. Su Yu was embarrassed. His eyes were blind, and before he opened them, his soul eyes had already been opened, allowing him to see everything that was happening in the outside world. He could see Xia Jingyu's every move. Ever since that question, there had been a tacit understanding between the two of them. Su Yu had gradually realized that Xia Jingyu was interested in him. But he had seen her first, and he could not let Xia Jingyu down. He could not be thick-skinned enough to accept this friendship. Moreover, if Sienna knew that her fiancé had a secret relationship with her best friend, Xia Jingyu, would she be upset? Let me help you continue your comprehension. Xia Jingyu's face was red, and she hurriedly shifted her attention. Su Yu felt the awkward atmosphere, and he nodded, immediately merging his divine decree with hers. As their hands clasped tightly, Su Yu could feel her trembling nervously. This caused Su Yu's heart to sink. How was he going to respond to Xia Jingyu's feelings? With a heavy heart, Su Yu quickly got into the zone, borrowing her powers of comprehension to continue comprehending the technique. This comprehension lasted for half a day. Along the way, Xia Jingyu had to stop to rest twice. But there was no resentment on her face. There was only unconcealable joy. A day later, Su Yu stood up. The air around him trembled continuously, and shreds of a mysterious aura emanated from Su Yu's body. Xia Jingyu felt extremely uneasy. Her figure flickered, and she immediately retreated, surveying her surroundings in shock. Why is the spirit energy of a universe so chaotic? Xia Jingyu's eyes were filled with wisdom. When Brother Yu was still in Yu, it was said that he had mastered a legendary technique. To think that it was true. At that moment, the trembling of the space around Su Yu increased. Black cracks appeared in the space, like broken glass. A wave of space energy descended from the sky, wrapping around Su Yu. It looked like he was about to be transported. The remnant force of my breakthrough reached the level of the fairy realm, and I was transported by the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Xia Jingyu's expression changed. Luckily, Su Yu had been startled by the strange phenomenon and had woken up in time. The mysterious heavenly map appeared, repelling the space energy and preventing him from being transported. Congratulations, Brother Yu. You've achieved great success. Xia Jingyu's face was full of smiles, as if she was happier than if she had made a breakthrough in her movement technique. Su Yu was also very excited. After being stagnant for so long, he had finally cultivated the Buddhist saint's 8 characters to the upper class and had managed to cultivate the fighting formula. The might of this martial art was a level higher than the Bing character. Its might was not to be underestimated. As Su Yu looked at Xia Jingyu, who was sincerely happy for him, he thought for a moment, then asked, "How can I repay you, Jingyu?" Xia Jingyu had helped him so much that Su Yu didn't know how to repay her. It had always been other people who owed Su Yu favors, but he owed Xia Jingyu countless favors. "I don't need to repay you, as long as Brother Yu remembers me." Xia Jingyu smiled sweetly, her face blushing. "Remember you?" Su Yu's heart became heavy as he felt Xia Jingyu's emotions getting more intense as she grew older. "Jingyu, Su Yu wanted to say something, but he hesitated. He wanted to reject her, but when he looked at Xia Jingyu's bright eyes, he couldn't bring himself to say anything. As if sensing Su Yu's complicated emotions, Xia Jingyu's smile froze, and she became silent. There was still an insurmountable barrier between her and Su Yu. As she thought of this, her eyes darkened. After a moment, she forced a smile. "Brother Yu, let's quickly go to the Divine Sparrow stage. Since everyone is gathered there, there might be people trying to break through the stone statue forest. If there are people who succeed, we can learn from them. All right, but I need to make some preparations." Su Yu felt as if a huge burden had been lifted from his shoulders, and he took out a set of clothes. It was the clothes of the returning principal palace. The people of Jojo do not seem to know that there are people from the Jinlong continent here, and they think we are wandering martial artists of Jojo. The status of wandering martial artists is very low in Jojo. To avoid trouble, I should continue to pretend to be a disciple of the returning principal palace. Suyu quickly put on a set of clothes with a returning Principal Palace's insignia, making him look even more heroic. Xiaojingyu nodded. I will listen to Brother Yu. She secretly observed Suyu, feeling that no matter how he dressed, he would stand out from the crowd. Suyu, Inyu, Black Snow Devil King. Which one of them was not in existence that shook the world? Thinking about this, she could not help but feel proud. The Divine Sparrow stage was not too far away. They followed the direction that Zheng Zhijing had escaped and arrived in an hour's time. They were still hundreds of miles away when they discovered traces of people. They were scouting the edges of the stone forest, as if they were looking for a weakness. As they went deeper into the forest, the number of people became more and more concentrated. At one point, they encountered a large group of 20 people. When they arrived at a huge stage that had been flattened out of thin air, they were instantly shocked by the bustling crowd. Looking over, there were more than 300 to 400 people walking around on the stage. Their clothes were all different, and their cultivation levels were all different. They were scattered all over the stage. In an instant, the place was filled with people, as if it was a bustling market. Suyu was used to a sparsely populated environment. Now that he had suddenly entered this place, he felt as if he had been in another world. But Suyu was even more shocked. How could there be so many people? Could they have appeared at the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion from the start? At the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, Suyu and his group had experienced many dangers before entering the spell with great difficulty. Almost 100 people had died at the hands of the silver puppets. Why were there still so many people? So many people? It looks like the King of Darkness saved a wandering martial artist and obtained a map to travel between the 7th and 8th level of the Divine Pavilion. This is not a secret among the wandering martial artists of Jiuzhou. So many people have taken a shortcut to enter the 8th level. There was indeed another route. The so-called transportation spell that Lu Chuyi and her group knew was probably outdated information. As for the information of wandering martial artists, they were much more flexible compared to the various factions. There were also some factions that had heard of this news. For example, the Yufeng faction. Suyu did not remember meeting them at the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, but they had also come to this place. I heard that on the last day of the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion, there will be an exchange gathering, and everyone will take what they need. Back then, the King of Darkness did not have the right to come to the 8th level, and he regretted it. It is said that the appearance of precious items at the exchange gathering could alert the seniors at the mysterious heavenly stage of Jiuzhou. They would think of a way to open up a crack and cross realms to exchange for items. As seniors, they would not be stingy, and the person exchanging for items would usually get something worth it. What? There could be Jiuzhou seniors exchanging across realms? This was something that Yu-chan had never mentioned. With this, if no one in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion had found the blood of a real dragon, and the Jiuzhou seniors had shown themselves, they could ask them. The possibility of them having the blood of a real dragon was even greater. Suyu could not miss out on this exchange gathering. Suyu observed his surroundings, and he quickly discovered a few familiar figures. Ghost King by Qi. In reality, he had noticed Suyu after he had arrived, and he had been paying attention to Suyu. The other person was Sheng Xuelian. It looked like she had also avoided the silver puppet and successfully entered the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion. Of the people who had been with them, Yu-chan had disappeared, Lu Chuyi had left the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. Sheng Ge had been petrified, and Cho Ziming had died. Only the 3 of them were left. The 2 of them nodded at him from afar, as a form of greeting. Suddenly, Suyu felt an obscure gaze, and he could not help but turn his head to look. Behind the crowd, there was a 14-year-old girl wearing a bamboo hat. Her face was completely covered by the bamboo hat, and only the exquisite curves of her body revealed that she was a woman. Her cultivation base was only at the level of Human King, similar to Suyu and his group. But for some unknown reason, the moment Suyu saw the girl, his heart trembled violently, and he had an indescribable feeling of fear. But when he used his soul eyes to scan the girl, there was nothing special about her. Suyu's eyes flashed with suspicion. Humph! The 2 of you really dare to come. Where's my junior? An unkind gaze shot toward them coldly. Zhang Zhijing wore a cold smile as he looked over. Beside him, there was a bald youth who had both his hands as sleeves. He carried a big black knife on his back, and his face was ferocious. His gaze was ferocious, and his murderous aura was strong. There was also a bloody smell coming from his body. Under Su Yu's gaze, the ferocious bald youth was surrounded by a layer of faint blood-colored air current. This was the blood energy that had accumulated after killing so many people. Chapter 536. The King of Killers of the Yufeng Faction. Not far from Su Yu, an 18-year-old girl subconsciously glanced at the fierce-looking young man who was walking over. She subconsciously cried out in alarm, and her tone was filled with fear. As soon as he said this, the divine sparrow stage, which was filled with people, suddenly quietened down. In that moment, everyone fell silent, each taking a distance away from the King of Killers, not daring to look at him. This person's name was Zhou Jin, and he was a famous Outer Sanctum disciple of the Yufeng faction. It was rumored that he was one of the 3 Outer Sanctum disciples with the highest hopes of entering the Inner Sanctum. He had caught the eye of a divine Master Elder, and once he entered the Inner Sanctum, he would be taken in as a disciple. His future was bright. In this mysterious heavenly stage competition, he had suppressed all of the geniuses of Jiuzhou. He was as famous as Chou Ziming, and they were known as the 2 gods of killing. In terms of killing, Chou Ziming was only famous for his cruel methods. But Zhou Jin was famous for his bloodlust, and he would kill at the slightest provocation. It was rumored that the people he killed could not even compare to the Inner Sanctum disciples of the Yufeng faction, and he was undoubtedly the King of Killers. Many people had strong opinions about him, and it was rumored that some Inner Sanctum disciples felt that he was too arrogant and wanted to teach him a lesson. But in the end, the Inner Sanctum disciple, who had already broken through to the fairy realm, was injured by Zhou Jin and had to escape. The rumors about his abilities became extremely mysterious. It was rumored that he could have broken through to the fairy realm at any time, but for special reasons, he had purposely suppressed it to the level of half-fairy realm, waiting for the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion to carry out a secret mission for the elder who was about to take him in as a disciple. Creak! Suddenly, Zhou Jin cast a sidelong glance at the girl who had just spoken. A thin line of blood suddenly appeared between the girl's brows, spreading from her brows to her abdomen. Then, the girl's eyes darkened, and her body split into 2 with a line of blood at the center. Blood splattered everywhere, quickly turning the ground into a pool of blood. Just like that, this demigod-level girl was mysteriously split into 2, dying an extremely bloody death. She had merely been glanced at by Zhou Jin. Such a bloody and cruel scene caused the spectators to shudder, all of them looking away. Even looking at the scene required a lot of courage, much less speaking up for the girl. Otherwise, their fates would not be much different from the girl's, mysteriously split in 2. Su Yu was one of the few people who had seen the entire process clearly. The girl did not die from that gaze, but from the black knife on Zhou Jin's back. In the eyes of ordinary people, Zhou Jin merely glanced sideways at the girl. However, in Su Yu's eyes, Zhou Jin had completed 3 actions in the blink of an eye. Drawing the saber, attacking, sheathing the saber, everything was done in one go, as smooth as flowing water. His speed was even faster than lightning. Ordinary people would not be able to detect his movements and would think that the girl had mysteriously died. Xia Jingyu, who was standing behind Su Yu, couldn't help but shiver slightly. What a powerful blade technique. Its might isn't any weaker than a fairy's. Even if I have the feather needle of darkness, I still might not be a match for her. No matter how strong the feather needle of darkness was, there was still a limit. We've really provoked a troublesome fellow. Xia Jingyu looked at the innocent girl who had died a tragic death, and her heart was filled with anxiety. This person was extremely ruthless and lived up to his reputation as the Killer King. Su Yu's gaze turned grave. Another Chou Ziming? To be precise, he was even more terrifying than Chou Ziming. However, Su Yu did not think much of Zhou Jin's ruthlessness. Even though he was known as the Killer King, from the looks of the girl who had died a tragic death, the people he had killed were far weaker than him. He would fly into a thunderous rage at the slightest offense. He looked powerful, but in reality, this was the behavior of the weak. Those who were truly powerful would not kill the weak to raise their prestige. This person was merely a coward who had been suppressed by the inner sanctum disciples for years and had taken his anger out on the weak. Such a person was not worthy of Su Yu's attention. Are you the one who injured the people of the Yufeng faction? Yes or no? Answer me. Zhou Jin's voice was loud and wild, filled with killing intent. Su Yu did not reply. He flicked out a small fireball with his finger, burning the girl's corpse to ashes. This was to prevent her corpse from being exposed in the wilderness. Creak! Zhou Jin's expression was ferocious. His figure did not move, but in reality, he had already struck with his knife. However, in the instant he struck with his knife, Su Yu's body had already been covered by a layer of malevolent armor surrounded by black fog. With an intense vibration, the demonic fog on the armor surged, then immediately calmed down. All that was left was the remnant of the knife energy, spreading through the air, sending chills down everyone's spines. Zhou Jin's ferocious eyes were filled with a shred of surprise. The fact that the other party was able to block his sword so easily surprised him. A semi-manufactured spiritual artifact armor. Not a bad treasure, I want it. Zhou Jin laughed sinisterly, his laughter reverberating in the silent divine sparrow stage, sending shivers down everyone's spines. But everyone present pretended not to see anything, no one daring to question him, even if they also coveted the armor. I'll give you a way out. Offer up the woman behind you, the armor, that jade needle, and one of your arms. You can live. Anything less, and you die. Zhou Jin's words were domineering and cruel. Zhang Zijing, who was behind him, had a look of regret in his eyes. After Zhou Jin had seen the true appearance of the cloaked lady, he would never allow himself to touch her again. She was a fairy from the heavens. Su Yu's eyes swept over, calmly saying, "Why? Because you can only bully the weak? Because you are a cowardly, good-for-nothing?" His words were like thunder to the ears of the crowd. Many of them opened their eyes wide, looking at Su Yu in disbelief. Did he think that a single armor was enough to fight against the king of killers? If that was the case, he was too naive, so naive that it bordered on stupidity. However, when they noticed his attire, many people felt relieved. In the end, he is still relying on his faction, using the returning principal palace as a shield, thinking that Zhou Jin would not dare do anything to him. But relying on the faction, isn't that also a cowardly good-for-nothing? Zhou Jin laughed. His smile was even more sinister, with a hint of malevolence. Very well, you're the only person who dares to say such things. I have decided I will take back the choice I gave you. You only have one choice now, and that is death. What would come would eventually come. You might as well settle this problem as soon as possible. This person is right. You are indeed a good-for-nothing. Just when the two of them were ready to fight, a clear and melodious voice like that of an oriole suddenly came from outside the crowd. The crowd could not help but shudder, moving away to avoid being misunderstood by Zhou Jin. Behind the crowd, a 14-year-old girl wearing a pink dress and wearing a bamboo hat stood there. Young girl wearing a bamboo hat? She was the girl that Su Yu had noticed, the one that he was extremely wary of. Under the gaze of the crowd, the girl was neither servile nor overbearing, quietly standing in her original spot. Her bright eyes under the bamboo hat looked at Zhou Jin quietly, her lips carrying a hint of disdain. Chapter 537. A formless knife energy pierced through the air, slashing toward the young lady. Su Yu cursed inwardly. He wanted to act, but was too late. But the next moment, Su Yu's pupils shrank. The young lady had only extended 2 fingers to clamp down on the terrifying knife energy, which could cut through anything. She then rubbed her fingers together, and the knife energy was instantly reduced to dust. In the eyes of outsiders, the young lady had not moved at all. They did not realize that there had been an unknown exchange between Zhou Jin and the young lady. The expression of Zhou Jin, who was originally filled with murderous intent, changed greatly. His voice suddenly became extremely serious. "You are Shangguan Qing'er of the Red Blood Palace." The girl in the bamboo hat raised her hand slightly and took off the bamboo hat, revealing an incomparably delicate and pretty face that was both happy and angry at the same time. Her facial features were like a sculpture, extremely three-dimensional. Her skin was rosy, and her eyes were bright. 2 locks of hair fell beside her ears, gently swaying in the wind. She was dressed in a pink dress that was simple yet luxurious, and it accentuated her slender figure to the fullest. At first glance, she was like a pink lotus that had emerged from the mud, extremely fresh. What a delicate and exquisite lady. But Suyu was even more surprised by her identity. The Red Blood Palace, one of the 2 superpowers that controlled all the powerhouses in the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands. The outer sanctum elder of the Purple Cloud Palace, as well as the host of the Moon Glow Clear Ship, Lu Chuyi. Suyu had already met her. Due to a freak combination of factors, they had even had an unforgettable relationship. Now, someone from the Red Blood Palace had also appeared in the mysterious, heavenly, divine pavilion. Demon woman, Shangguan Qing. Gasps of shock could be heard from the crowd. Most of them were filled with respect and admiration from the man. "It's her?" Suyu was shocked. He had actually seen this face before. On the mysterious heavenly stage of the Jinlong continent, there were hundreds of statues, each of which was the strongest genius that had appeared in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. The strongest of the previous generation was a 14-year-old young lady. That young lady was exactly the same as the Shangguan Qing'er before him. As expected, this demon woman is also in the 8th level of the divine pavilion. A few gasps could be heard from the crowd. Looking at this lady, everyone was filled with respect, as if they were looking at a queen. In the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands, Shangguan Qing'er could be said to be a proud daughter of heaven. She was once an outer sanctum disciple of the Soul Seizing Palace, and she was found to have an ordinary aptitude. As such, her chances of breaking through to the fairy realm were extremely slim. However, this woman had killed many people in the previous mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. The 18 factions had been entrusted with an important task, and the 18 outer sanctum disciples, who viewed them as future inner sanctum disciples, had surrounded and attacked her. However, the final result shocked the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands. Everyone had been defeated by her. Following that, she charged into the stone statue forest in an invincible manner, becoming one of the few people who had successfully charged into the stone statue forest in countless years, completing a magnificent feat that shocked the outside world. After they left this place, the Soul-Seizing Palace conducted a new test on her aptitude, and they were shocked to discover that this girl actually possessed a faint trace of the ancient bloodline. The ancient bloodline was also a legendary bloodline in the 9 prefectures. It almost only existed in ancient books. Once the news was leaked, the other sects were all alarmed. In fact, the White Lotus faction and the Soul-Seizing Palace even went up to him directly to ask for him. The other sects were also getting restless, showing signs of fighting over this ancient bloodline spiritual body. In the end, the Soul-Seizing Palace's leader, the Red Blood Palace, appeared. An old monster who had been training for an unknown number of years brought her back to the faction and took her in as a registered disciple. It was rumored that the old monster had already comprehended the Divine Master Realm and was an ancient being who could fly to the All Creations realm. In this way, the cruel battle between the open and the veiled was finally resolved. In other words, Shangguan Qing'er was now a registered disciple of an All Creations strong martial artist. With such an honor, even if her cultivation was taken away, who in the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands would dare to provoke her? Moreover, Shangguan Qing'er possessed the ancient bloodline, and her abilities were invincible among her peers. Who could be a match for her? Even Zhou Jin, who boasted that no one below the fairy realm could be a match for him, felt suffocated in front of Shangguan Qing'er. On the mysterious heavenly stage, he had once confidently fought against her, but in the end, she had defeated him within 3 moves. Such a tragic experience made Zhou Jin realize that the gap between them was not any smaller than the gap between him and a middle-stage fairy. I said that you were a coward. Do you have a problem with that? Shangwan Qinger walked over. Zhou Jin's heart was pounding, and his face was full of fear. I was reckless. Please forgive me, Fairy Shangwan. Even someone as ferocious as Zhou Jin cupped his fists and apologized sincerely. Zhang Zhijing also lowered his head hurriedly, not daring to look at Shangwan Qinger in the eyes. Although this woman was as beautiful as a fairy, he did not dare to have any thoughts about her. Shangwan Qinger looked around. Wherever she looked, everyone felt offended, and they all lowered their heads. We are all people of Jiuzhou, so we should be united in times of hardship. Before the legacy is opened, no internal strife is allowed. Shangwan Qinger's pleasant voice fell into everyone's ears like a warning, and no one dared to resist. Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. How could such a person appear? The Ghost King also narrowed his eyes, and a fearful light shone in the depths of his pupils. At that moment, Shangwan Qinger's gaze turned and landed on Su Yu. Her delicate face revealed a gentle smile, like that of a little girl next door. Brother Black Snow, long time no see. As she spoke, her delicate body, which was as fresh as a lotus, pounced into Su Yu's embrace like a little bird returning to its nest. Su Yu froze, instinctively avoiding her, but she naturally hugged Su Yu's arm. Her fair face was flushed red. At that moment, the entire place was dead silent. They looked at the cute and helpless Shangwan Qinger dumbfounded. The proud daughter of heaven, the ancient bloodline spiritual body that countless geniuses looked up to, the usually cold Shangwan Qinger, she had actually become like this. This unexpected scene made everyone's jaws drop. Su Yu pulled his arm away, but she hugged him tightly, showing no signs of letting go. Patter! With a light sound, Xia Jingyu's fingers stiffened, and the feather needle of darkness in her palm fell to the ground. Her entire body was cold, and her entire body was stiff. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, shock, and a rare jealousy. Brother Yu, who is she? Xia Jingyu tried her best to control herself, but her voice was trembling uncontrollably. Her fair palms gradually clenched. Her lowered head was covered in shadows, and no one could see her expression clearly. But Su Yu could feel Xia Jingyu's suppressed anger. Who are you? Didn't you see me acknowledge Brother Black Snow? How insensible! Shangwan Qinger wrinkled her nose, grunting in dissatisfaction. Brother Black Snow, who is this woman? Sensing the anger in the air, how could Su Yu continue to be ambiguous? With a flash of lightning around him, he forcefully broke free from Shangwan Qinger's grasp, teleporting to Xia Jingyu's side. Looking at Shangwan Qinger, his expression gradually turned cold. I am Inu. I have never met you before, so please respect yourself. Hearing this, Xia Jingyu froze. Her eyes, which were filled with anger, were filled with doubt. Shangwan Qinger's eyes were filled with surprise. Su Yu being able to break free from her grasp was unexpected. Haha, Brother Black Snow does not know Qinger, but Qinger has known Brother Black Snow for a long time. I have been ordered by my teacher to invite you to meet her. Shangwan Qinger took out a compass, and the needle on the compass was pointing at Su Yu accurately. Without a doubt, he was the ancient bloodline spiritual body that her master, Imo Tianxian, was looking for. He had the true ancient bloodline. It was not like her, who only had a trace of blood. The only strange thing was that her master had said that there was a high possibility that the other party was a woman, but the compass was pointing at the Dark Demon King. In the Dragon Abyss of the 9 Underworlds, Su Yu and Xia Jingyu had been together. Their names had long been known to Mo Tianxian, who existed in the unseen world, but she could not be certain which one of them had the ancient bloodline. Hence, she had given him a compass that could sense the ancient bloodline. Now that the compass was pointing at the Black Snow Demon King, there was no doubt that he had the ancient bloodline. Su Yu was the person she was looking for. Master? All creation's strong martial artist? Su Yu was shocked. When had he entered the line of sight of an all creation's old monster? Could it be that he had obtained Tian Jizi's legacy and an Emperor-based Saint artifact? If that was the case, he could not follow Shangwan Qing'er to Jiuzhou no matter what. I'm sorry, I do not know your master. I appreciate her kindness, but forgive me for not being able to comply, Su Yu said bluntly. Hearing this, the crowd felt as if they had been struck by lightning. There was actually someone who dared to reject the invitation of an all-creations old monster. Shangwan Qing'er's smile froze. She had not expected Su Yu to reject her. Master has instructed me to invite you to the Red Blood Palace no matter what. Brother Black Snow, you better not make things difficult for me. Shangwan Qing'er was half joking and half threatening. Su Yu laughed. As long as you have the ability. What a joke. He was from the Jinlong continent. No matter how the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion transported him, he would be transported back to the Jinlong continent. No matter how capable Shangwan Qing'er was, it was impossible for her to bring Su Yu to Jiuzhou. Shangwan Qing'er's eyes flashed dangerously. Brother Black Snow, I'm afraid it's not up to you anymore. Su Yu's gaze turned serious. Up to you. If you want to bring me away, let's see how capable you are first. The harmonious scene just a moment ago had turned hostile in the blink of an eye. Brother Black Snow, you seem to be very confident in yourself. Shangwan Qing'er suddenly smiled sweetly. Su Yu calmly replied, I was only resisting because I had no choice. What a good no choice. But, Brother Black Snow, before we make our move, shouldn't we invite a certain gentleman to come down first? Shangwan Qing'er suddenly smiled mysteriously. Su Yu was slightly stunned. He swept his soul, eyes over, and looked at the sky abruptly. His pupils shrank slightly. She raised her head abruptly and looked at the sky above their heads. With a wave of her sleeves, the dry clouds rolled back and the space shattered inch by inch. The mass of clouds above their heads was instantly shattered by a great force and turned into nothingness. Then, two figures appeared from within the mass of clouds. One was a middle-aged man with a goatee, while the other was a youth with an ice-cold expression. One of them had a cultivation base that Su Yu could not see through, while the other was a vital energy crystal master. Chapter 538. In the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, he was undoubtedly a king. He was a fairy without any restrictions, and he could use his fairy powers at will. Even Lu Chuyi, a divine master who had entered this place, could not compare. The appearance of this person immediately caused panic. By Yijian, the king of the guardians. A young man's eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. He really broke through to the fairy realm. Panic spread like a plague. The legend of the king of the guardians had existed for a long time. It was said that he was the strongest existence among the guardians. He alone led over 100 guardians to guard the 5 peaks. His abilities had always been a legend, as no one had ever been able to defeat him and reach the final legacy of materials. Even the previous invincible king, Shangwan Qing'er, had returned empty-handed after crossing the stone statue forest. It was said that she had been defeated by Yijian in only 3 moves. At that time, there were rumors that Yijian might have broken through to the fairy realm. Now, the undisguised true energy and the terrifying spiritual energy proved that everything was correct. He had indeed broken through to the fairy realm. He was almost invincible in the mysterious, heavenly, divine pavilion. He, long time no see, Shangwan Qing'er. Yijian's white robes fluttered in the wind, a faint smile on his face. He only looked at her, and no one else could be seen in his eyes. That was disregard, and it was also natural arrogance. In the eyes of the fairy realm, a mere half-god could not be tolerated. Only Shangwan Qing'er was worthy of his attention. That was all. I haven't seen you for 10 years, and your abilities have grown a lot. Yijian smiled, speaking as if there was no one else around. In the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, time passed 10 times faster than in Jiuzhou. Yijian had spent 10 years, while Jiuzhou had only spent 1 year. Shangwan Qing'er's beautiful eyes were filled with awe. You have also broken through to the fairy realm. You are even stronger than before. Didn't you also break through to the fairy realm? It looks like you have the guidance of an expert, and you are not affected by the mysterious heavenly palace. You must be an all-creation old monster comparable to Tianjizi, right? Bai Yijian had actually revealed her cultivation level, as well as the shadow of an all-creation old monster behind her. Su Yu's heart trembled. Shang Wanqinger had indeed broken through to the fairy realm. No wonder she gave him such pressure. However, what was even more shocking was that with the help of the all-creation's old monster, this woman was not affected by the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion and was able to display her true abilities to her heart's content. If that was the case, it would be even more troublesome. The reason why Su Yu was able to subdue Shanggu was largely due to the fact that her cultivation had been suppressed. If not for this restriction, it would have been hard to say whether he would have been able to win, let alone subdue her. Shang Wanqinger did not mind. She said calmly, "This time, I have another mission. For the time being, I will not interfere with the inheritance that you are guarding. If you do not have the determination to fight me, then immediately retreat 5,000 kilometers away. I do not like to be disturbed." She was determined to bring Su Yu to Jiuzhou, and she had even given up on the legacy of materials. Since they were both fairies, Bai Yijian would probably not want to be entangled with Shang Wanqinger. After all, there was an all-creation old monster behind her, and she would definitely have some defensive treasures. "I'm sorry, but I can't agree. No one here is allowed to leave," Bai Yijian said coldly. His aura was turbulent, and his expression was resolute. Shang Wanqinger's expression turned cold. "Humph. Could it be that after your cultivation level has improved, you want to kill everyone who entered this year?" The guards had always been merciless towards those who had barged into the Five Peaks. Now that Bai Yijian's cultivation level had improved, and he had even broken out of his isolation, it was hard to guarantee that he would not start a massacre. "If I wanted to start a massacre, I would have killed all of you 10 years ago. Why would I wait until now?" Bai Yijian let out a grunt. What he said was true. In the previous year, Shang Wanqinger had suppressed everyone, and it was not impossible for Bai Yijian, who was stronger than her, to kill all of them. "Then what do you mean?" Shang Wanqinger could not help but crease her brows. Bai Yijian had a smile on his face. He looked around and laughed heartily. "Of course it is to welcome all the geniuses of the faction to open the legacy of materials with me." Shang Wanqinger raised her eyebrows. Her eyes filled with confusion. After a moment of silence, the crowd burst into an uproar. "What? How is that possible? The legacy of materials is taken by the guards for their own use. In name, they are the guards, but in reality, the materials inside belong to them. How could they be willing to take them out and open it with us?" After the uproar, someone asked with a passionate gaze, "May I ask if this is true?" Bai Yijian replied, "Do you think that there is a need for me to lie to all of you?" As a fairy, there was indeed no reason for him to lie to them. Hearing this, the crowd could not contain their joy. However, since they were known as the geniuses of the factions, they would naturally not be so brainless. The guards definitely had their own reasons for doing so. Indeed, Bai Yijian continued, "However, there is a condition to be fulfilled in order to enter the legacy." The crowd gradually quietened down. Things were indeed not as simple as they seemed. That is, to be able to cross the stone statue forest. What I need is not a useless person, but someone with a certain level of ability. Only then can I open the last place in the legacy. Whether or not you can cross the stone statue forest will be the test for all of you, Bai Yijian said casually. Stone statue forest? Hearing this, most of the people's faces sank. If they had the ability to cross the stone statue forest, why would they have waited until now? This condition was enough to disqualify most of the people. They did not even have the heart to try. Zhang Zhijing stared at the stone statue forest and said in a low voice, "Senior, are you joking? In the past, only a few people have been able to cross the stone statue forest. How many of us have absolute confidence that we can cross it?" In other words, Bai Yijian was making fun of them. The rest of the people also revealed looks of dissatisfaction. "If this is Senior Bai's request, please forgive us for not taking the risk." Most of them had not gathered here for the legacy materials. The danger of the stone statue forest was only suitable for outstanding outer sanctum disciples like Shang Wanqinger. The rest of them had no intention of crossing it. Most of them had gathered here to wait for the exchange festival that would take place in 5 days. Now, who would risk their lives to cross the stone statue forest at the last juncture of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Seeing the expressions on the faces of the crowd, Bai Yijian frowned slightly. He muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "If that is the case, I will make another sacrifice." The top 5 people who take the shortest amount of time will be qualified to enter the mysterious heavenly spiritual pool of the guards. There, they will be able to cleanse their body's spiritual energy and increase their cultivation base. Of course, if one has a complete vital energy crystal, he or she might be able to break through the shackles and reach the level of the fairy realm. Once he said this, there was a huge uproar. Mysterious heavenly spiritual pool? Senior Bai, are you sure what you said is true? The crowd became even more excited than when they were sharing the legacy materials. Excited faces could be seen everywhere. Chapter 539. Bai Yijian, what are you planning? Shangguan Qinger's face was filled with bewilderment, and her eyes were filled with deep shock. She said in a puzzled tone, "The mysterious heavenly spirit pool is a sacred place that Senior Tianjizi left behind for the Guardians. Not to mention outsiders, even among the Guardians, only a few people have the privilege to enter it to train, right? A sacred place left behind by Tianjizi? It looked like Tianjizi did not forget to take care of his disciples and descendants before he died. However, these descendants had forgotten their ancestors' will and were now plotting to pass on the legacy. I'm a man of my word. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. From now on, the 5 people who take the least amount of time to cross the stone statue forest will be able to enter our sacred place." Bai Yijian calmly said. The crowd, who were initially uninterested in the stone statue forest, became excited, as if they had been injected with adrenaline. Just as Su Yu and Xia Jingyu were feeling puzzled, Shangguan Qinger walked over and said with a smile, "Brother Black Snow, if you want to go, Qinger can bring you along." Qinger can also reluctantly bring this woman along as well. Her words were heard by the people in the surroundings, and there was another round of noise. If that was the case, 3 out of the 5 spots would be taken. Shangguan Qinger had successfully crossed the stone statue before she had even reached the fairy realm. Bringing 2 people along might be a little taxing, but it would not affect her from entering the top 5. Su Yu creased his brows. No need. There is no need to take such a risk. They were still unclear of the true intentions of this sacred place. A simple promise of purifying spirit energy to increase one's cultivation level was not enough for Su Yu to judge its importance. Brother Black Snow, you must quickly make up your mind. The mysterious heavenly spirit pool was created by an all-creation old monster. To a human king like you, breaking through to the level of half-god is not an issue. If you are lucky, you might even be able to form your first vital energy crystal. Shangguan Qinger playfully blinked her eyes. What? Su Yu and Xia Jingyu were shocked. In the Jinlong continent, breaking through from human king to half-god required at least a year of accumulation. This was limited to special beings like Su Yu and her. Forming a vital energy crystal from half-god to half-god required another 2 years of accumulation. The spiritual pool before their eyes could be easily achieved. In fact, Su Yu and she could easily surpass the half-god realm and start to condense vital energy crystals. Such a fortuitous encounter could only be chanced upon but not sought after. Brother Black Snow, what do you think? Shangguan Qinger seemed to have seen through Su Yu's thoughts, and she said with a smile. Xia Jingyu glanced at Shangguan Qinger and calmed herself down. At this point, she naturally understood that Su Yu was indeed a complete stranger to her. Everything was just because the girl was trying to be friendly with him. Brother Yu, let me try first. Xia Jingyu pondered for a moment, then took out the feather needle of darkness. With this needle in hand, if she strengthened her water path, her strength would be comparable to a half-fairy with 2 crystals. She really didn't want Su Yu to owe this young girl a favor because of her. Shangguan Qinger glanced at her and said calmly, "With your power, you are just sending yourself to your death. Do you think that you can block the petrifying energy that the worms spew out? The petrifying gas isn't a gas on the surface. It's actually a mental attack. Your water path is just a physical attack. It has no effect on the petrifying gas. Spiritual attack? So he was surprised. It was no wonder that even a fairy like Shang-gu was petrified. If one were to barge in unknowingly, it would be difficult to defend against it. If you have a soul defense treasure on you, pretend that I didn't say anything. Shangwan Qinger had a faint smile. Xia Jingyu creased her brows. Even though she was proficient in many techniques, she didn't have the talent for souls. At this moment, someone finally couldn't resist the temptation of the mysterious heavenly spiritual pool and made a move. A one-crystal half-fairy carefully walked to the edge of the divine sparrow stage. Below him was the stone statue forest, which was covered in dense fog. Many geniuses had been sealed there forever, becoming stone statues that could be faintly seen within the fog. The crowd gradually quieted down, all of them looking at the half-fairy who had tried first. The one crystal half-fairy looked at the ghost-like stone statues, as though he was facing a great enemy. He gathered all of his spirit energy and vital energy on his body, acting as his first line of defense. He then took out a powerful defensive talisman and pasted it on his forehead. The talisman immediately released a layer of dark yellow light, enveloping his body. A fairy realm defensive talisman? The crowd was secretly shocked. This half-fairy, whose cultivation level wasn't considered to be at the peak, could actually take out a fairy realm defensive talisman. This shocked everyone. At this moment, the other party took out a pair of wheels. He stepped on them, causing them to spin rapidly. The air waves that were created caused a large part of the dense fog to disperse. A treasure that can increase one's speed? Could it be that semi-manufactured spiritual artifact, the wind-stepping wheels, that is said to be unrivaled in the world? How did this item appear in the hands of a wandering martial artist? Wait, could he be the 18 blessed and heavenly lands' rapist, Qianli Xiang? It is rumored that there will be a woman in the future. Countless women from good families have been killed by him, and even the female cultivators of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands have been killed by him. They are listed as evil cultivators that the 18 blessed and heavenly lands must kill. She was once chased by a fairy, but she managed to escape easily by relying on the wind-treading wheels. The crowd's hearts sank. With this person's famous light body technique, he might really be able to pass through the stone statue forest quickly and reach the land of legacy. Quick, stop him! Someone let out a low grunt, his figure grabbing toward Qianli Xiang like lightning. Dozens of figures moved upon hearing the news. They could not give Qianli Xiang a chance, as he could snatch one of the spots. Qianli Xiang was already prepared. He laughed, releasing a red fog around his body, covering his figure. The wind-stepping wheels under his feet started spinning rapidly. His figure disappeared from his original position. When he reappeared, he was already 1,000 feet away, having crossed a large section of the stone statue forest. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed another 1,000 feet. By the time the worms in the stone statue forest reacted, Qianli Xiang had already leaped 10,000 feet, crossing a third of the area. So he was secretly surprised. Previously, when he was in the stone statue forest, he had already felt that there was some sort of suppression near the stone statue forest. His vital energy and spiritual energy could not circulate smoothly, and his body technique speed was obviously suppressed. Qianli Xiang's wind-stepping wheels were, after all, a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. His speed was definitely not limited to this. Shangwan Qinger nodded. Yes, your speed is not bad. You are much stronger than I was back then. Your speed is indeed not bad. Bai Yijian's eyes lit up. Although his body technique was obviously slow, in the eyes of the two of them, it was not bad. It could be seen that flying in the stone statue forest was indeed difficult. But if it is only at this level, Bai Yijian shook his head indifferently. At that moment, Qianli Xiang was treading on thin ice, flying quickly above the stone statue forest. Every time he passed by, the worms would react and spit out fog, which did not pose much of a threat to him. At that moment, he had already crossed a third of the area and was about to enter the central area. However, at that moment, a large amount of gray fog erupted in front of him, as if a volcano had erupted. It was as if a light screen had appeared in front of him. Qian Lixiang's expression changed abruptly. When he looked over, he saw a giant worm, which was more than twice the size of a normal worm, spitting out a large amount of fog. At the same time that Qian Lixiang's expression changed, he took out a talisman and tore it open, creating a blue hurricane in an attempt to sweep away the fog. However, the fog did not move at all. It allowed the hurricane to blow, and it was not affected in the slightest. Qian Lixiang's eyes flashed with unwillingness, and he could only choose to retreat. However, when he retreated, he realized that his path of retreat had already been surrounded by the worms. Shocked, Qian Lixiang dashed toward the sky. However, he had only flown 1,000 feet before he crashed into an invisible, transparent light screen, which caused him to fall back down. Below him, the entire sky was filled with gray fog, which had wrapped around him. The fog ignored the protective light screen on the surface of his body, as well as the vital energy and spiritual energy defense on the surface of his body. It landed directly on his body. Qian Lixiang screamed in extreme fear as his body suddenly turned into stone and fell from the sky. Slap! He fell from the sky and landed on the ground, directly turning into broken stones. He had died on the spot. If a normal stone statue had the spiritual liquid of a female worm, it would still be able to recover its physical body and see the light of day again. However, Qian Lixiang's death was undeniable. The rapist of his generation had been smashed into pieces just like that. The entire crowd was silent as they stared at Qian Lixiang, who had died without a proper burial. Many geniuses, who had been eager to try, felt as if they had been doused with a bucket of cold water. His death had dispelled most of the people's greed. The stone statue forest was too terrifying. Bai Yijian calmly said, "If you do not wish to die even faster, do not fly too high." Shangguan Qing'er was not surprised, as she looked at Su Yu with a smile. "Brother Black Snow, what do you think? Have you considered it? Was there even a need to consider?" After witnessing this scene with their own eyes, unless one had extraordinary abilities, who would dare to attempt the cruel stone statue forest? Many people looked at Su Yu with envious gazes. Was Shangguan Qing'er the only person present who had absolute confidence? "There is no need. I alone am enough," Su Yu calmly said, pulling Xia Jingyu to the edge of the divine sparrow stage. This scene caused everyone to be shocked once again. This lad is extraordinarily courageous. I wonder where he got his confidence from, daring to cross the stone statue forest. Most importantly, he brought someone with him. Bai Yijian was shocked. He could not help but size up Su Yu. After confirming that Su Yu only had the cultivation level of a human king, he creased his brows. "Young man, if you do not understand the stone statue forest, you should understand more before taking action. There are seals around the stone statue forest, suppressing the movement techniques of those who enter. If you bring another person with you, the power of the suppression will not be as simple as 1 + 1. Instead, it will multiply. With your cultivation level, you will not be much faster than an ordinary person if you bring another person with you. I advise you not to send yourself to your death." He was not worried about Su Yu's safety. Rather, if he failed again and someone died, it would cause even more people to give up. This would greatly affect his ability to gather more people. Hearing this, Su Yu's expression was calm. "I know what I'm doing. If there is nothing else, I will set off." As Su Yu spoke casually, he pulled Xia Jingyu along with him and left in front of the crowd's gazes. Chapter 540. So stubborn. Shangguan Qing'er creased her nose. Based on her experience, unless Su Yu's ancient bloodline was special and could counter the petrifying energy, he would not even be able to protect himself, much less bring a person along. But she could not watch as Su Yu sent himself to his death. She had no choice but to personally send him over. With a flash of light, Shangguan Qing'er flew to her side, as if she was going to bring them over. Her action shocked everyone present, causing them to shiver. Shangguan Qing'er was indeed going to attack. There were only 2 spots left in the top 5. Zheng Zhijing's eyes were filled with anxiety, Senior, I will go over first. Having gotten Senior Zhou Jin's approval, Zhang Zhijing immediately took out a white necklace. It seemed to be carved from some special wood, releasing a cool aura that made one feel refreshed. Zhang Zhijing wore the necklace around his neck, forming signs with both hands. The long knife on his back was unsheathed with a clang. It grew in the wind, becoming a zhang long, floating beneath his feet. With a tap of his foot, Zhang Zhijing leaped onto the long knife, turning it into a blur as it pierced through the air. His speed was not any slower than Qian Lixiang's. In fact, it was even faster. The secret technique of the Yufeng faction, the blade manipulation technique, someone exclaimed in surprise. The Yufeng faction specializes in controlling weapons, especially the Imperial sword manipulation technique and blade manipulation technique. Taking a person's head from 1,000 miles away is as easy as taking something out of one's pocket. Hence, their speed is extremely fast. Blade manipulation technique? So you still remember Zhou Jin's lightning-fast blade technique. A normal person could not even see his movements, showing how fast his movement technique was. The faction was named Yufeng for a reason. Shangguan Qinger, who was about to bring Su Yu and Zhou Jin out, stopped, waiting calmly. Let him pass first. The restrictions in the stone statue forest are very sensitive. The more people that enter, the more ferocious the petrifying worms will be. There is no need to fight needlessly and put yourself in danger. Looking left and right, as expected, after Zhang Zhijing stepped out, no one else dared to step into it. Zhang Zhijing's movement technique was extremely fast. Even though he was slowed down in the stone statue forest, he was still faster than Qian Lixiang. In just a few breaths' time, he had crossed a third of the distance. The insects behind him couldn't keep up with his movements at all, and the petrifying gas they spat out couldn't compete with them at all. Just as they were about to step into the central area, the petrifying worm that was twice the size of a normal worm appeared as expected. Like a volcanic eruption, a large amount of petrifying gas soared into the sky, completely blocking the path ahead. How similar was this scene to what Qian Lixiang had encountered earlier? What was different was that Zhang Zhijing did not retreat. Instead, the true energy in his body surged outwards. It did not condense into a protective true energy, and his body did not have any defenses. Instead, he infused his Jinqi into the necklace around his neck. In an instant, a snow-white stream of air slowly spread out in the form of ripples. The snow-white air current was extremely unique. Even the people far above the divine sparrow stage could feel a cooling sensation in their souls. His spirit was refreshed, and his exhaustion was gone. It was extremely strange. What was even more shocking was that wherever the snow-white airflow passed, the petrification chi automatically retreated. This scene shocked many people once again. The ferocity of the petrification chi could disregard any object. What kind of divine item was that snow-white necklace? It looked like it was extremely effective against the petrification chi. Zhang Zhijing's eyes were filled with excitement as he passed through the dissipating wall of petrification chi and quickly stepped into the central area. Hiss! Like a group of snakes hissing, his steps seemed to have startled countless petrifying insects. In the midst of the rolling fog, a worm that was 3 times the size of a normal worm led 10 other worms to spit out petrifying gas towards the sky. Being petrified twice as fast was still manageable. The petrification gas that was spewing out under the snow-white airflow quickly disappeared like snow melting in spring. But the petrifying gas that the worm that was 3 times the size of a normal worm spat out was extremely dense. It was almost like a liquid, and its color was also very dark. When the snow-white airflow swept past, it only caused the spreading of the petrification chi to slow down a little, but it did not suppress it too much. Zhang Zhijing's expression instantly turned serious. He did not dare to be careless. Taking advantage of the moment when the petrification chi froze, he moved like the wind and passed through a small gap in the light barrier. It was extremely dangerous for him to pass through the central area. In an instant, he had passed through the central area and had passed through 2/3 of the area. Such a shocking result caused the geniuses at the Divine Sparrow stage to exclaim in shock. Throughout the years, there were very few who could reach this stage. Zheng Zhijing is much more powerful than we expected. Someone exclaimed, his gaze fixed on Zheng Zhijing, who was in the fog. In the last third of the area, Zheng Zhijing took a deep breath and was about to pass through it in one breath. But at this moment in the fog, a stone statue that had been standing there for a long time suddenly moved. Ever since the crowd had arrived at the Divine Sparrow stage, they had noticed the stone statue at the end of the stone statue forest. Compared to a normal stone statue, it was even taller and more majestic. They had thought that it was a powerful genius that had died in hatred. But since it was a stone statue, it could not move at all. Shangguan Qing'er revealed a rare, serious expression. It has finally appeared, King of Petrifying Worms. Whether or not we can pass through the stone statue forest depends on this worm. King of Petrifying Worms. Could it be the mother worm? The spirit fluid that it secreted could dispel the power of petrification and was also the key to Shang Ji's recovery. But its size was so huge that it made one's hair stand on end. Even a petrifying worm, which was 3 times the size of a normal worm, was only as thick as a wrist. But this worm king was even bigger than a normal human. It was hard to imagine what the petrifying gas that it secreted would look like. Creak! The huge petrified worm shook, and it let out a sharp cry. Instantly, the entire stone statue forest was covered by a petrifying gas. The expressions of the geniuses on the Divine Sparrow stage changed, and they all retreated, looking at the scene in the forest in shock. It could easily turn the entire stone statue forest into a state of petrification. Furthermore, with the Worm King as the center, a large amount of lime-colored liquid shot out in all directions in an explosive manner. It covered the sky and covered the earth, making it impossible for anyone to defend against it. No matter which angle one looked from, one would be hit by it. Zheng Zhijing's expression was one of anxiety. A liquid was shooting towards him. This liquid was not real liquid, but liquefied petrifying gas. The petrifying gas contained within it was 100 times denser than that of a normal petrifying gas. Not to mention being hit by it, even if one was within 30 feet of it, one would immediately turn into a stone statue. Furthermore, it was said that any living being that was personally petrified by the Worm King had no chance of recovering. In other words, if one was within 30 feet of the Worm King, one would die. At this critical moment, Zheng Zhijing's heart was beating wildly, but he did not dare to be slow. He tore off the snow-white necklace from his neck and crushed it on the spot. With a dull thud, the necklace turned into a snow-white powder that filled the air, floating around Zheng Zhijing's body. When the liquefied gas met the snow-white powder, it was like water entering flour. It was instantly absorbed, and its momentum was greatly reduced. Zheng Zhijing sacrificed this necklace in exchange for a precious opportunity. His figure flashed continuously, and he carefully avoided the liquefied gas, passing through the area. Amidst the angry roars of the Worm King, he successfully passed through the stone forest and reached the shore. It was a sacrificial altar similar to the Divine Sparrow stage, and it was safe. Zheng Zhijing's face was pale, and he was panting heavily. His forehead was covered in sweat. At this moment, his palms began to tremble. Previously, he had been completely tensed up, but now that he had relaxed, his palms began to tremble uncontrollably. Thinking back to the 2 times he had narrowly escaped death, Zheng Zhijing could not help but turn pale. However, when he felt that the ground beneath his feet was firm, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. Ha! I have succeeded. Only a few people had managed to pass this stage in the past. Zheng Zhijing was indeed proud. The people at the Divine Sparrow stage, who had personally witnessed this miraculous scene, had mixed feelings. There was shock, fear, dissatisfaction, and dejection. Not bad. You used 20 breaths. Bai Yijian finally let out a smile. Shangguan Qing'er sighed softly. It's a pity about that necklace. That necklace is a soul defense necklace, and it is one of the rarest types of treasures. The value of that necklace is probably not much lower than a semi-manufactured spiritual equipment. Suyu heard this and nodded to himself. Indeed, from his observations, Zhang Zhijing had relied on a soul defense treasure to successfully pass the stage. Since Junior has already passed, it is my turn. Zhou Jin laughed loudly, taking out the black knife on his back for the first time and holding it in his hands. His figure was like the wind, and he took a step forward. With his speed, it was easy for him to reach 1/3 of the stage. Very quickly, the worm of petrification that was twice the size of a normal worm appeared, as expected. But before he could spit out the petrifying energy, the black knife in Zhou Jin's hand flashed, and he instantly sped up, arriving at the center of the stage. The worm of petrification that was 3 times the size of a normal worm did not pass so easily. It opened its mouth and spat out a dense, petrifying energy. This time, there was no space left for Zhou Jin. But Zhou Jin was not afraid. The black knife in his hand slashed down from the sky. A blade energy that was hard to see with the naked eye pierced through the clouds. This was clearly a physical attack. But the dense, petrifying energy was sliced open, leaving behind a huge gap. Suyu raised his eyebrows. What a powerful knife technique. It already contained some soul attacks. Shangguan Qing'er nodded. This is the soul-severing knife technique of the Yufeng faction. When trained to a certain level, the knife technique will contain some soul attacks. It is very troublesome for people of the same cultivation level. Indeed, it was already extremely strenuous for an ordinary person to deal with such a domineering lightning like blade technique. If a spiritual soul attack that could not be blocked appeared, even if it caused the slightest bit of absent-mindedness and caused an opening to appear, it would be equivalent to drawing the symbol of death. Zhou Jin was like a hot knife through butter, easily reaching the last 1/3 of the stage.